Yu Han's body emitted a mist, and within the mist, there seemed to be endless cries of injustice. His body trembled continuously, dissipating the power of the crescent moon slash. The crescent moon slash did not cause much damage to him, and Yu Han continued to rush towards Lu Ming. 9 Serenity's Ghost Claw. Yu Han shouted, and a ghost claw was formed, grabbing towards Lu Ming. His eyes were filled with excitement, as if he could see the scene of Lu Ming being killed by him. Boom! A wave of energy from the 9 Serenity's ghost claw hit Lu Ming. The strange energy passed through Lu Ming's body and rushed towards Lu Ming's soul. However, Lu Ming's soul was protected by the Jingyu painting. When the energy hit the Jingyu painting, it had no effect on Lu Ming's soul. Yu Han was waiting for Lu Ming's soul to be affected and his strength to weaken before launching a thunderous attack. However, what he waited for was Lu Ming's thunderous attack. Exploding Star. Lu Ming shouted and used the exploding star move. A terrifying spear radiance rushed towards Yu Han and exploded. The destructive energy shrouded Yu Han in an instant. How can this be? How can this be? Yu Han screamed in shock. At the same time, he retreated rapidly. His body emitted a thick mist and ghostly shadows appeared, blocking the destructive energy around him. Puff puff puff. A large number of ghostly shadows turned into ashes under the destructive energy and disappeared completely. Finally, Yu Han retreated out of the attack range. However, his face was pale. Obviously, this move had caused him to suffer a great loss. His eyes were filled with anger as he stared at Lu Ming. That move had caused him to suffer a great loss. Brat, how can you block my soul attack? Yu Han roared. Idiot, why should I tell you? Lu Ming despised the other party. He took a step forward and charged toward the other party. Luck, it must be luck. I don't believe it. Yu Han roared and pounced towards Lu Ming again. Unfortunately, this time was the same as the previous time. When his attack landed on Lu Ming, it had no effect on Lu Ming. On the contrary, Lu Ming seized the opportunity and used another exploding star move. Yu Han's face turned pale and he lost a large number of ghostly shadows. Damn it, you're not afraid of my soul attack. All right, you must have a treasure to protect your soul. Yu Han roared. It's too late to know now. Lu Ming sneered. Too late? It's not late at all. Lu Ming, do you think you can kill me? As long as I dodge with all my strength, your attacks won't be able to reach me. No matter how much divine force you have, it will run out sooner or later. I can exhaust you to death. Yu Han shouted angrily. The fog around her became thicker and thicker, about to envelop the entire fighting stage. At the same time, ghostly shadows flickered in the fog. Yu Han's body kept flickering, as if she had merged with the ghostly shadows, making it difficult for people to track her. Even if Lu Ming wasn't afraid of soul attacks, he wasn't afraid. Lu Ming's strongest attack wasn't as strong as Chu Baxiang's. As long as he dodged, it would be difficult to deal a heavy blow to him. Is that so? The corners of Lu Ming's mouth curled into a sneer. With a thought, the ice shackles flew out. As soon as the 9 ice chains flew out, they rapidly lengthened and revolved around the battle stage. A terrifying coldness permeated the air. Layers of ice crystals appeared in the air, freezing the ghostly figures. Yu Han was shocked. I'll shrink the battle stage. Let's see how you're going to dodge. Lu Ming said coldly. He manipulated the ice shackles to dance around the fighting ring. Soon, the fighting ring was covered with ice shackles and the space in the fighting ring was shrinking rapidly. You want to trap me? Dream on. All you have to do is destroy these chains. Yu Han shrieked and launched an attack, bombarding the ice shackles relentlessly. However, the ice chains only shook a few times and didn't break. At this moment, Yu Han's expression changed completely. How is this possible? How can it be so hard? Yu Han screamed in horror. Chapter 3059. Yu Han's overall strength was strong, but he relied more on his strange cultivation technique and the soul shock technique. However, his attack power was not as strong as Jin Yuan and Chu Baxiang, so he could not break the ice chains. This was a move that Lu Ming had prepared for Yu Han. Compared to Lu Ming, dealing with Yu Han was easier than dealing with Chu Baxiang. Boom! Boom! Yu Han kept attacking the ice shackles, but it was useless. On the contrary, the terrifying chill of the ice shackles almost froze his body, causing his speed to decrease a little. Damn it! Yu Han was really panicking. She roared furiously, no longer having the confidence she had before. Starburst! Lu Ming stepped forward and performed the supernova move, blasting it toward Yuhan. Boom! The destructive force swept towards Yuhan. Yuhan wanted to dodge, but he was surrounded by ice chains. There was no way he could dodge. The terrifying destructive force bombarded his body continuously. Green smoke rose from his body, and a large number of ghostly shadows were turned into ashes by the destructive force. After one move, Yuhan's aura was weakened. Without being able to dodge, he was even weaker than Chu Baxing. He was severely injured in one move. No! Yuhan was completely panicking. He kept shouting and wanted to retreat. With a few flashes, he dodged some of the ice chains. Unfortunately, the light shield of the fighting stage was behind him. He slammed into the light shield and was blocked by it. Despair was written all over his face. If they were outside, Lu Ming wouldn't be able to do anything to him even if he had the ice chains. Even if he couldn't win, he could still escape. However, the space here was too small. He couldn't escape at all. Senior, let me out. I don't want the Life Spirit Vitality Stone anymore. Let me out. Yuhan kept shouting. However, the Array Spirit was indifferent and unmoved. Yuhan was in despair. Starburst! Another low voice was heard, and then a destructive force drowned Yuhan. Bang! Yuhan's body directly exploded, turning into ghostly shadows. Among them, more than half of the ghostly shadows were destroyed by the destructive force. The remaining half wriggled, trying to recover and merge back together. However, Lu Ming struck again. The destructive energy completely drowned Yuhan. Yuhan let out a cry of despair. This time, all the ghostly shadows were destroyed, completely vanishing into thin air. As for Yuhan, she had completely fallen. Another genius had been killed by Lu Ming. This time around, killing Yuhan was much easier than killing Chu Baxing. It was a completely one-sided battle. The main reason was that Yuhan's various advantages and methods were completely ineffective against Lu Ming. In this relatively narrow environment, Yuhan was restrained by Lu Ming. She couldn't dodge even if she wanted to, and was easily killed by Lu Ming. This Lu Ming must be eliminated, Jin Yuan muttered, his eyes flashing with murderous intent. He was thinking about how to get rid of Lu Ming with the help of the Jin family after leaving Xingyue Ancient City. Kid, you killed a genius of the Abysmal Heavenly Palace. We will remember this. The last genius of the Abysmal Heavenly Palace said coldly. His eyes were filled with murderous intent as he looked at Lu Ming. The others also had different thoughts in their minds. If you're not afraid of death, then come at me. Lu Ming replied indifferently and ignored them. All right, the final winner has been born. The Natal Spirit Stone already has an owner. The rest of you go back. The Array Spirit said. After speaking, he waved his hand. The path under Su Yan, Jin Yuan, and the rest quickly shrank and disappeared into the chaotic fog. Only Lu Ming was left at the scene. Come up. The Array Spirit waved his hand again. The path under Lu Ming's feet extended all the way to the high platform where the Array Spirit was. Lu Ming stepped forward and finally walked up to the high platform. There was nothing else on the high platform except for an altar. The altar looked very old and was filled with the aura of time. On top of the altar, there was a black ball floating there. Is this the Natal Spirit Stone? Lu Ming stared at the ball, his eyes shining with a fiery light. In the early days of the Heavenly Palace era, it was guarded by so many powerful existences. Along the way, there were many barriers to protect the Natal Spirit Stone. How mysterious was it? Lu Ming was looking forward to it. Senior, is this the Natal Spirit Stone? Lu Ming asked the Array Spirit. That's right. This is the Natal Spirit Stone. It's yours now. You just need to drip a drop of blood on it and you can keep it. The Array Spirit smiled. Thank you, Senior. Lu Ming cupped his fists and then stepped up to the side of the altar. He forced out a drop of blood and dripped it on the black Natal Spirit Stone. Suddenly, a ray of black light appeared on the Natal Spirit Stone. In a flash, the drop of blood was absorbed by the Natal Spirit Stone. At this moment, Lu Ming seemed to have established a connection with the Natal Spirit Stone. It was as if Lu Ming could control the Natal Spirit Stone at will. With a thought, the Natal Spirit Stone on the altar flew up and turned into a rainbow light. It flew into Lu Ming's glabella and disappeared. The next moment, the natal spirit stone appeared in Lu Ming's sea of consciousness and floated there quietly. "Come out," Lu Ming muttered. The natal spirit stone appeared in Lu Ming's palm. Lu Ming channeled his divine power and poured it into the natal spirit stone. However, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. There was no reaction at all. "Senior, how do I use this natal spirit stone? What does it do?" Lu Ming asked the array spirit. "It doesn't work," the array spirit answered lightly. Lu Ming staggered and almost fell. "What? It doesn't work?" Lu Ming looked at the array spirit with an ugly expression and said, "Senior, what do you mean by it doesn't work?" "It means it doesn't work. Don't you understand?" the array spirit said. Lu Ming's face sank. He was really speechless. He had risked his life all the way here, and what he got in the end was a piece of scrap metal? Lu Ming was about to vomit blood. It was a trap. It was a trap. However, if it didn't work, why did so many people guard it? "Little guy, don't be discouraged. I said it doesn't work because the natal spirit stone you got is just a fragment," the array spirit said. "A fragment? This isn't complete?" Lu Ming asked speechlessly. "Yes, this is not a complete natal spirit stone. It's just a fragment. The other fragments are scattered everywhere. I don't know where they are," the array spirit said. "It's just a fragment. What can I do with it?" Lu Ming sighed. He was still brooding over this. "Little guy, don't underestimate this fragment. It's a fragment of the natal spirit stone. In the early Heavenly Palace era, no, even in the incipient God era, this was a rare treasure. It has a great effect. Do you know?" the array spirit said. Chapter 3060. The array spirit rambled on about how awesome the life spirit stone was. He said that it was already a great fortune for Lu Ming to get a fragment. However, Lu Ming was not in the mood to listen at all. He had worked so hard to get a fragment, but it was useless. He was very unhappy. "Little guy, you must not underestimate a fragment. If you can collect all the fragments in the future and turn them into a complete life spirit stone, it will be a great fortune for you. It can help you become the overlord of the primitive universe." The array spirit persuaded Lu Ming earnestly. "Become the overlord of the primitive universe? Are you bragging?" Lu Ming did not believe it. "Of course it's true. I can swear that a complete life spirit stone will definitely be more useful than you can imagine." The array spirit swore dandan. Hearing what the array spirit said, Lu Ming was really a little tempted. As Lu Ming's cultivation continued to improve, he saw more and more things. His horizons were broadened and he knew more about the primitive universe. However, the more he knew, the more he was in awe. The primitive universe was too big, too big, too big. It was boundless. In the primitive universe, there were countless races, countless powerhouses, and countless powerful forces. Not to mention the Qin Tian starfield. Even a universe-level force like the Taishu dynasty only occupied a corner of the primitive universe. In the primitive universe, there were countless universe empires like the Taishu dynasty or forces of the same level. There were even forces more terrifying than the Taishu dynasty. No one knew how many terrifying powerhouses there were in the primitive universe. Perhaps, there was an invincible powerhouse living in seclusion on a remote planet. Therefore, it was too difficult to become the overlord of the primitive universe. There were countless powerhouses in the primitive universe, but how many dared to be called an overlord? The array spirit said that as long as he got a complete life spirit stone, it could help him become the overlord of the universe. This made Lu Ming excited. Seeing Lu Ming's eyes lit up, the array spirit continued. "So, work hard and find the remaining fragments of the life spirit stone. You are very talented. I have high hopes for you." Lu Ming glanced at the array spirit. He had a feeling that the array spirit wanted Lu Ming to find the remaining fragments. It looked more anxious than Lu Ming. "How do I find the remaining fragments?" Lu Ming asked. "The natal spirit stone is a rare treasure. Even if it's just a fragment, it's still a rare treasure. It has its own spirituality and will look for an opportunity to come out and find a suitable genius to become its master. Just like you," the array spirit said. Lu Ming's gaze shifted. "That's right. That's why you have to kill other geniuses with natal spirit stone fragments to obtain their natal spirit stone fragments. That's the only way their natal spirit stone fragments will recognize you as its master and merge with your natal spirit stone fragments," the array spirit explained. "Then where can I find those geniuses?" The primitive universe is so big. Isn't it like looking for a needle in a haystack? Lu Ming frowned. Of course not. Fragments of natal spirit stones have a strange connection with each other. As the owners of the fragments of natal spirit stones, they will eventually meet. Once they meet, you will know who the owner of the natal spirit stone is. But let me tell you, the life spirit vitality stone fragments won't recognize anyone as its master unless they're a peerless genius. So, in the future, when you meet geniuses, they'll be terrifying geniuses. You have to work hard and improve your strength. You're still too weak. The array spirit continued to explain. Can I not take the life spirit vitality stone fragment? Lu Ming said, feeling rather speechless. He had obtained the life spirit vitality stone fragment, but he had gained nothing. Instead, a group of enemies had appeared out of nowhere. He was even more displeased. No, you've already dripped your blood. You can't refuse it even if you don't want to. Geniuses with vitality stones are destined to be enemies. Even if you don't kill others, others will kill you. Young man, work hard. The array spirit continued, its eyes full of anticipation. Lu Ming felt that he had fallen into a trap. He had not gained any benefits, but he had gained himself a group of potential enemies. Moreover, they were all extremely terrifying enemies. Senior, how do I get out? Lu Ming sighed. He could only accept his fate and leave first. The platform under your feet is a teleportation formation. It can help you leave this place. You just have to inject your divine power into the altar. With that, the array spirit turned into a rainbow light, flew into the life spirit vitality stone, and disappeared. Seeing this scene, Lu Ming's eyes widened. He felt that something was wrong and shouted, "Wait, come out!" The life spirit vitality stone fragment shone and the array spirit's figure appeared again. Little guy, why are you calling me? The array spirit asked. Aren't you the array spirit here? Why are you in the life spirit vitality stone fragment? Lu Ming asked. Ahem, I'm indeed such an array spirit. The array spirit coughed a few times and said without blushing. Old man, you lied to me. Lu Ming gritted his teeth and said, since you're the array spirit here, you can only stay here forever and accompany the array here. You entered the life spirit vitality stone fragment to leave. How can an array spirit leave? So, you're not the array spirit. Who are you? Why did you lie to me? With that, Lu Ming stared at the array spirit without blinking. He felt that he had been deceived by the old man. Ahem, ahem. Ha ha ha, little guy, you're worthy of being a peerless genius. To be recognized by the life spirit vitality stone fragment, you're really not simple. To tell you the truth, I'm not the array spirit. I'm the rock spirit of the life spirit vitality stone. The old man coughed a few times and laughed. The rock spirit of the life spirit vitality stone? Then why did you lie to me before? Lu Ming asked, still staring at the old man. I didn't tell you before because I wanted to test you and see if you could tell. You didn't let me down. The old man laughed and said, bullshit. This old man was definitely bullshitting. He even said that he wanted to test Lu Ming. He was definitely boasting shamelessly. Old man, you're shameless. Lu Ming stared at the old man. This guy said that he was the rock spirit, and Lu Ming believed him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to enter the life spirit vitality stone fragment so easily. Ahem, little guy, what are you talking about? How can you say that about an old man? The rock spirit coughed a few more times. If I'm not wrong, every life spirit vitality stone fragment has a rock spirit. As long as you can kill other geniuses who have obtained the life spirit vitality stone fragment, not only can the life spirit vitality stone fragment fuse, you can also swallow other rock spirits to strengthen yourself, right? Lu Ming said. Chapter 3061. Lu Ming's words caused Shiling's expression to change. Little guy, you can even guess this? Shiling was really surprised this time. It's just a random guess. It seems that I guessed right. Lu Ming's face was cold. This old guy was bragging about how awesome the life spirit vitality stone was to tempt Lu Ming. He was up to no good. He wanted to use Lu Ming to integrate other rock spirits. No wonder he didn't tell Lu Ming that he was a rock spirit and not a formation spirit. Lu Ming even suspected that a complete life spirit vitality stone was not as awesome as Shiling said. It could help him become a universe overlord. He must be bragging. Little guy, don't look at me like that. The more rock spirits I integrate, the stronger I will be. The stronger I am, the stronger the life spirit vitality stone, and the more benefits it will bring to you. I'm doing this for your own good. Xueqi said shamelessly. However, Lu Ming didn't really believe this old guy. He felt that he had really fallen into a trap. Old guy, since you are a rock spirit and the life spirit vitality stone fragment has recognized me as its master, it means that you have recognized me as your master. Is it appropriate for you to call me little guy? Lu Ming stared at Xueqi with an unfriendly look. Xueqi looked embarrassed and smiled brightly. It's just a form of address. Why take it so seriously? Look at me, I'm already so old. It's not bad to call you little guy. Why don't I call you Lu Ming? Lu Ming's face was still sullen. He stared at Xueqi and didn't say a word. Xueqi felt guilty and said, Okay. Master, I'll call you master, okay? Xueqi said unwillingly. That's more like it. Lu Ming's mood was finally a little better. Anyway, he felt that Xueqi was very unreliable. He couldn't be bothered to be polite with him. Go in, I'm leaving, Lu Ming said. The rock spirit nodded, turned into a beam of light, and drilled into the life spirit stone fragment. Then, Lu Ming put the life spirit stone fragment into his sea of consciousness, walked to the altar, and poured his divine power into it. Wang. As soon as he channeled his divine power into the altar, runes began to appear on the altar. Then, runes began to appear on the entire platform. Xueqi was right. This platform was a transportation array. Runes filled the air, and a door of light appeared. Lu Ming stepped in, and in the next moment, Lu Ming discovered that he had appeared on top of a mountain peak. Lu Ming looked around and discovered that he was already outside the castle. He was about tens of thousands of li away from the castle. Looks like there are no treasures in this entire castle. Only a fragment of the life spirit origin stone was left behind. Lu Ming muttered a few words, then soared into the sky, turned into a beam of light and left this place. Inside the castle, many sky prides were still exploring, but Jin Yuan, Su Yan, and the others continued to explore. After discovering that there was nothing to be gained, they all left. Lu Ming flew all the way, and after flying for hundreds of thousands of li, he found a place to land. It's been a few months since I entered the castle. I wonder if Wu Ming and the others have any news about the mid-autumn moon. Lu Ming pondered, then took out a voice transmission jade talisman. First, he sent a message to the mid-autumn moon, but he still could not send it. Then, he sent a message to Wu Ming. Unexpectedly, not long after, Wu Ming replied. The message said that they had found clues about the mid-autumn moon. Seeing this, Lu Ming was overjoyed. After arranging a meeting place with Wu Ming and the others, Lu Ming hurried to the meeting place. A day later, Lu Ming met Wu Ming, Wu Yu, and the others. Brothers Wu, you said that you have news about the mid-autumn moon, is it true? As soon as he saw Wu Ming, Wu Yu, and the others, Lu Ming couldn't wait to ask. It's true. During this period, we've been asking around and finally found some clues. It said that someone saw the mid-autumn moon at the Myriad Moon Lake. Wu Ming said. Myriad Moon Lake? What time period? Lu Ming asked. He knew about the Myriad Moon Lake. It was recorded on the map that Wu Zixiong gave him. It was a huge lake that was extremely mysterious. I heard that they saw it when they first entered Xingyue Ancient City, but then it disappeared. Wu Ming frowned. Saw it when they first entered Xingyue Ancient City? Lu Ming frowned, and he had a bad feeling in his heart. The mid-autumn moon appeared at the beginning, but then it disappeared. Even the voice transmission jade talisman could not be sent out. What was going on? Did something really happen? Brother Lu, don't worry. I believe that the mid-autumn moon will be fine. Yes. Wu Ming, Wu Yu, and the others comforted Lu Ming. Thank you, Brother Wu. Lu Ming will take his leave now. Lu Ming cupped his fists and said, Brother Lu, why don't we go with you? Wu Zixiong said, No need. I'll go to the Myriad Moon Lake. Next, I'll have to trouble you to help me find out about the mid-autumn moon. Lu Ming said, Of course. Brother Lu, don't worry. Wu Ming and the others nodded. They also knew that Lu Ming's strength was much stronger than theirs. If they followed Lu Ming, not only would they not be able to help, but they might even drag Lu Ming down. It was better for Lu Ming to act alone. Lu Ming said goodbye to Wu Ming and the others and went to the Myriad Moon Lake alone. The Myriad Moon Lake was west of where Lu Ming was. Lu Ming spent more than a day to reach the Myriad Moon Lake. A boundless lake appeared in front of him. This lake was very mysterious. There seemed to be countless bright moonlight shadows on the lake, which was why it was called the Myriad Moon Lake. Rumble. Loud rumbling noises could still be heard from far away. Lu Ming flew to the center of the Myriad Moon Lake. Not long after, Lu Ming found a huge whirlpool in the center of the lake. The rumbling sound came from this whirlpool. The whirlpool was very large, at least a few thousand miles in radius. The endless lake water was sucked into the whirlpool, but the strange thing was that the lake water did not decrease. Suddenly, Lu Ming's eyes moved. He saw a figure on the other side of the whirlpool. It was a young man. He was a winged person with a pair of green wings on his back. There were wisps of lightning swimming on his wings. He was a thunder-winged person of the winged race. The winged race was an extremely large race in the primitive universe. It was divided into many different branches of the winged race, and their strength was unparalleled. The thunder-winged race was just one of the branches of the winged race. Lu Ming remembered that there was an ancient family in the 9 extinction Heavenly King residence, and all of them were thunder-winged people. The other party looked at Lu Ming, and his eyes flickered. Obviously, he recognized Lu Ming. Lu Ming flew over and cupped his fists. "Brother, I want to ask you something. May I ask if you have seen this woman?" After saying that, Lu Ming took out a jade talisman. The jade talisman shone, and the image of the autumn moon appeared out of thin air. This jade talisman sealed the image of the autumn moon. Chapter 3062. When the winged man youth saw the image of mid-autumn moon, his eyes flickered and he was surprised. Lu Ming noticed this clearly. "Brother, have you seen this woman before?" Lu Ming quickly asked. "Yes, I have." The winged man youth nodded. "Where have I seen him before?" "When?" Lu Ming's eyes lit up and he quickly asked. "Who is this woman to you? Why should I tell you?" The winged man youth turned his eyes and asked. "This woman is my wife. She entered Star Crescent Ancient City with me. I think you know her." Lu Ming said. "Oh, so she's your wife." "To tell you the truth, when I first entered Star Crescent Ancient City, I was teleported nearby and happened to see your wife. However, she later entered this whirlpool." The winged man youth said. "She entered this whirlpool?" Lu Ming's heart sank and more doubts arose in his heart. Why did mid-autumn moon enter this whirlpool? But then again it was not impossible. The voice transmission jade talisman could not send any messages. It was very likely that it was isolated. If mid-autumn moon was in this whirlpool, it was normal that the voice transmission jade talisman could not send any messages. "Brother, have you seen my wife after that?" Lu Ming asked again. "No. To be honest, I have been cultivating nearby for the past few years and have not seen your wife. Your wife entered this whirlpool and never came out." The winged man youth said. "She never came out. Could it be that mid-autumn moon has been in there all this time?" Lu Ming became more worried. In the end, Lu Ming decided to go in and check it out himself. Although he did not know whether the whirlpool was dangerous or not, Lu Ming had to make this trip. "Thank you." Lu Ming cupped his fists at the youth of the Winged Men clan before he turned around and left. After checking the surroundings of the whirlpool, Lu Ming's figure flashed and he directly rushed into the whirlpool. As soon as he dashed into the vortex, the surrounding huge waves slammed toward Lu Ming. Even a sacred mountain would be smashed into smithereens. However, Lu Ming circulated his divine power, and the 9-layered crimson gold armor appeared, easily blocking the attack of the giant wave. Lu Ming followed the power of the whirlpool and went into the depths of the whirlpool, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Seeing that Lu Ming had entered the whirlpool, the young man from the Wingmen clan sneered and revealed a ferocious killing intent. "Lu Ming, he, there's something I forgot to tell you. Your wife was forced into this whirlpool by me. This whirlpool is definitely very dangerous. I hope you die in there, he. The youth of the Winged Men clan kept sneering. He did not leave immediately. Instead, he waited in the surroundings. After waiting for a few months, he did not see Lu Ming coming out. Hence he left this place. Lu Ming naturally did not hear what the youth of the Winged Men clan said. He followed the whirlpool and kept going down. Gradually, The whirlpool became smaller. Finally, Lu Ming's body became lighter. He found that he had come out of the whirlpool and arrived at an underground space. The walls of this underground space were carved with lifelike statues. They looked like ancient deities that had traveled through time and space to come here. There was indeed another world under the myriad moon lake. The mid-autumn moon should be under here. Lu Ming looked around and finally found a passage. Lu Ming followed the passage and went forward. There was nothing unusual along the way. After passing through the passage, he came to a bigger palace. Ta-ta-ta. When Lu Ming stepped into the palace, he heard footsteps coming from the palace. Lu Ming was shocked and looked in a direction. There was a big door in that direction. Not long after, a figure walked out from behind the big door. It was an old man from the human clan. He was wearing a snow-white robe and had a head full of white hair. He had a snow-white beard and looked like an immortal. However, Lu Ming stared at the old man cautiously. This old man was not like Xueqi, who had an illusory body. He was a living being with flesh and blood. How could there be such an old man in Starry Crescent Ancient City? Could it be that he was a native of this place? Or was he an old monster that had survived from the early days of the Heavenly Palace? Lu Ming did not dare to be careless. Finally, someone else is here. The elder looked at Lu Ming and smiled gently. His smile was amiable and it made one feel as though they were bathed in the spring breeze. Anyway, Lu Ming did not feel any malice from the old man. Senior, a friend of mine has entered this place. I'm here to look for someone. Lu Ming cupped his fists and said, "You're looking for a beautiful lady, right?" The old man asked with a smile. "That's right. Have you seen her before?" Lu Ming was overjoyed. He quickly took out the image of Autumn Moon and showed it to the old man. The old man glanced at it and nodded. "That's right. It's this lady who came here a few years ago." "Where is this lady now?" "To tell you the truth, this lady is my wife," Lu Ming said. Although Lu Ming and Autumn Moon were not officially married, Lu Ming had already regarded her as his wife in his heart. "So she's your wife?" The old man smiled and said, "You don't have to worry. Your wife is very safe and has obtained a supreme opportunity." "Obtained a supreme opportunity? What do you mean?" Lu Ming asked again. He would not believe the old man so easily. This place was the cave of a supreme expert in the early days of the Heavenly Palace era. That supreme expert was my ancestor's master. Later on, that supreme expert passed away and left behind his inheritance. Your wife happens to be suitable for this inheritance. All these years, she has been receiving the inheritance. Isn't this a great opportunity? The old man said. The inheritance of a supreme expert. Lu Ming's eyes flickered as he thought quickly. The old man's words revealed a lot of information. First of all, this place was the cave of a supreme expert in the early days of the Heavenly Palace era. That expert passed away and left behind his inheritance. The old man's ancestor was that expert's servant. In that case, this old man was really a native of Xueqi ancient city and had been guarding this place since then? Of course, Lu Ming would not believe the old man just because of a few words. "Senior, can I see my wife?" Lu Ming asked. "She's receiving the inheritance and is at a critical moment. I'm afraid it's inconvenient for her to see you," the old man said. Lu Ming's face darkened. If he did not see her, how would Lu Ming know if the old man was telling the truth? "However, if you really want to see her, I can let you see her." At the end of his words, the old man changed the topic. Then, he waved his hand and his palm shone. An image appeared in the void. In the image, there was a stone room where a beautiful woman was sitting cross-legged. Her body was emitting 9-colored divine light. Who else could this woman be other than Autumn Moon? Xueqi sat cross-legged with a solemn expression on her face. There was a huge sphere floating above her head. Chapter 3063. There was a round ball floating above Mid-Autumn Moon's head. This round ball was a stone ball. It looked very ancient and had a diameter of a few meters. It was emitting a hazy glow. However, at a glance, this round ball looked like an eyeball. A huge stone eyeball. It was a little strange. It seemed that Mid-Autumn Moon was really accepting the inheritance. Seeing that Mid-Autumn Moon was fine, Lu Ming finally breathed a sigh of relief. It was no wonder that Lu Ming could not send a message out all these years. Mid-Autumn Moon was in this underground space and was accepting the inheritance. It would be strange if the message could be sent out. The old man waved his hand and the image disappeared. Do you believe me now? Your wife has reached a critical moment in accepting the inheritance. I estimate that it will take a few more years for the inheritance to be completed. At that time, your wife's cultivation will skyrocket and she will become a peerless genius. The old man said with a smile. Lu Ming nodded and did not doubt him. It seemed that Mid-Autumn Moon's opportunity was not small. I'm Deng Xiao. Little guy, what's your name? At this moment the old man asked. I'm Lu Ming. Lu Ming replied. Lu Ming, your wife still needs a few more years to accept the inheritance. Why don't you wait for her here? After she is done, you can leave with her. What do you think? Deng Xiao said. That's what I think too. Lu Ming nodded. Well, that's it then. However, I won't make you wait for the next few years. Since you're here, it's your fortune. I'll give you a secret technique. Study it carefully in the next few years. Whether you can cultivate it successfully or not will depend on your talent. Deng Xiao said with a smile. Secret technique? Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The owner of this place was an expert from the early Heavenly Palace era. The secret technique that he left behind was probably not to be underestimated. Lu Ming was a little tempted. Lu Ming, come with me. After Deng Xiao finished speaking, he turned around and walked toward the door behind him. Lu Ming followed behind. The underground space was huge. There were many palaces and stone rooms. Lu Ming followed Deng Xiao and went through several passages. Finally, they came to the bottom of a stone tablet. This stone tablet was huge. It was a few hundred meters tall. The stone tablet was engraved with strange runes. These runes were intertwined together and vaguely seemed to form a pair of eyes. What's carved on this stone tablet is a secret technique called the yin-yang godly eyes. It's a kind of eye technique. If you master it, you'll be able to kill people with just the opening and closing of your eyes. Deng Xiao introduced. As he spoke, the two arrived at the bottom. Lu Ming looked at the runes on the stone tablet seriously. At this moment, Deng Xiao's figure suddenly retreated. In the blink of an eye, he had retreated 1,000 meters away. Senior, what are you doing? Endless runes glowed and formed a huge formation. The formation was white on one side and black on the other. It looked like a Tai Chi formation. It covered an area of 1,000 meters. Boom! Lu Ming's figure flashed. He wanted to rush out of the formation. However, when he came to the edge, a light screen appeared and blocked Lu Ming's figure. Lu Ming crashed into the light screen and made a loud rumbling sound. Ha ha ha, kid, stay in there obediently. At this moment, Deng Xiao's face was no longer kind. Instead, it was filled with a ferocious expression as he laughed out loud. Deng Xiao, you lied to me? Lu Ming roared. I didn't lie to you. My name is Deng Xiao. What's engraved on the stone tablet is a secret technique called yin-yang god eyes. Deng Xiao sneered. Then why did you trick me into entering this formation? Lu Ming asked. It's simple. I want you to stay here obediently so that you won't ruin my master's plan. Deng Xiao sneered. Master's plan? What do you mean? Is it that stone ball? Lu Ming's face suddenly changed. Hee, it seems that you're a little smart. To tell you the truth, this is not my master's cave residence. The real master here was killed by my master in the early days of the Heavenly Palace era. Unfortunately, my master was seriously injured and only left an eye. He has been in a deep sleep until now. My master didn't wake up until your wife, that girl called Xueqi, came in. That girl is amazing. She actually has the sacred heart of 9 orifices. As long as my master occupies her body, he can be resurrected and return to the peak. Ha ha ha. Deng Xiao laughed and explained. Lu Ming's heart sank. It turned out that what Deng Xiao said was false. What about Autumn Moon receiving the inheritance of a supreme expert? It was all nonsense. In fact, that stone ball took a fancy to Autumn Moon's physique and wanted to possess Autumn Moon and take Autumn Moon as its own. The scene that Deng Xiao showed Lu Ming just now was not Autumn Moon receiving the inheritance, but Autumn Moon resisting the other party's possession. Autumn Moon was facing a crisis. Lu Ming's face was extremely ugly. Speaking of which, that girl's mind is really tough. She has resisted for so many years. However, no matter how tough her mind is, she won't be able to resist for many years. At most 10 years, no, at most 8 years, she will be completely possessed by my master. Then, my master will take us away from this damn place and dominate the primitive universe. Ha ha ha. Deng Xiu laughed at the end of his words and was very proud. As he laughed, Deng Xiu's body changed rapidly and turned into a huge eyeball floating in the air, looking extremely ferocious. Hee, to tell you the truth, I don't have an ancestor at all. I evolved from my master's flesh. Deng Xiu continued to laugh. At this moment, Lu Ming knew that Lu Ming had been targeted the moment he entered this place. Deng Xiu had deliberately turned into an amiable old man and told a series of lies to trick Lu Ming into coming here and trapping Lu Ming. However, Deng Xiu was extremely cunning. His words were filled with both truth and lies, which was why Lu Ming fell for it. Don't even think about it. Lu Ming roared. He would never let Deng Xiu have his way. A long spear appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Although Lu Ming's spear had been destroyed in the battle with Chu Baxing, Lu Ming still had a lot of spare spears. This one was also a 9th order divine grade god artifact. Moon slaying. Lu Ming's divine power surged as he slashed forward with his spear. A crescent-shaped spear light slashed at the light barrier at the edge of the formation. The light barrier only trembled slightly, then returned to normal. Hee, kid, don't waste your energy. This yin-yang formation isn't something you can break. Deng Xiu laughed mockingly. I don't believe. Lu Ming roared as his body expanded rapidly and turned into a green-armored ancient god. Chapter 3064. Exploding Star. Lu Ming transformed into a green-armored ancient god. He did not hold back at all. He exerted all his strength. A terrifying spear gleam burst forth and then exploded. Rumble! The destructive power bombarded the light screen of the formation, but the formation only trembled a little before returning to normal. This kid is actually so powerful. Deng Xiu was shocked when he saw Lu Ming's attack. He was secretly glad that he did not attack Lu Ming directly. Instead, he brought Lu Ming to the stone tablet and trapped Lu Ming with the yin-yang formation. However, he immediately laughed again. Hee, kid, don't waste your energy. You can't break this formation with brute force. Break. Lu Ming was too lazy to pay attention to his opponent and continued to attack. He must break this formation and save Xueqi. Otherwise, Xueqi would be possessed. Lu Ming absolutely could not let such a thing happen. Boom. Lu Ming launched a frenzied attack. Streaks of terrifying spear gleams bombarded the light screen, but it was useless. No matter how Lu Ming attacked, the light screen only trembled slightly and was fine. No matter how strong the bombardment was, it was the same. It could not be broken at all. After a while, Lu Ming stopped and his eyes were extremely gloomy. Old Liang, aren't you able to sense the energy of the formation? Why didn't you inform me in advance when that old man brought me in? Lu Ming transmitted his voice to the measuring word incantation. Last time, when they were ambushed, the measuring word incantation had sensed the formation set up by the other party in advance. Why didn't he warn him this time? If he had been warned in advance, Lu Ming would have been alert and would not have been trapped by the formation. Kid, do you think I'm the guy with the word formation? I can sense any formation. I could sense it last time because the formation set up by the other party was a killing formation. Moreover, it was newly set up and its energy was surging. That's why I could sense it. This formation is a trapping formation. Its energy is extremely mild, especially since it has been set up for many years. If it is not activated normally, there will be no energy reaction. How can I sense it? The measuring word incantation shouted unhappily. Lu Ming was speechless. He could not blame the measuring word incantation. I saw that there was a formation here before. At this moment, another voice sounded in Lu Ming's sea of consciousness. That voice was clearly the voice of the Vitality Stone spirit. Why didn't you remind me? Lu Ming asked. Do I need to remind you? As the owner of the Vitality Stone, if he couldn't even solve such a small problem, how could he compete with other competitors in the future? How can one wield a complete life spirit Vitality Stone and be called an overlord of the universe? The spirit asked. Lu Ming was stunned by the question and he gritted his teeth. This old guy deliberately did not remind him. Lu Ming wished he could step on his face. Lu Ming gritted his teeth. Do you have any way to get out? Lu Ming asked. No. The spirit and the measuring word incantation said in unison. Lu Ming almost vomited blood. Ha ha ha, kid, are you desperate now? I've said that you can't get out. Even a peak divine king can't break this formation by force. You can only get out with a special method. Deng Xiu burst out laughing. He felt great at the sight of Lu Ming being dealt a blow. Special method? Lu Ming whispered. Why? What special method do you want to know? All right, I'll tell you. Deng Xiu smiled and stared at the stone tablet. The method to break this formation is the secret technique on the stone tablet, the Yin-Yang God Eyes. As long as you cultivate the Yin-Yang God Eyes, you can easily break this Yin-Yang formation. Secret technique, the Yin-Yang God Eyes. Lu Ming's eyes lit up as he looked at the stone tablet. However, I have to remind you that there are conditions to cultivate the Yin-Yang God Eyes. Two people have to control two completely opposite divine grade divine forces and be connected in mind to succeed. Moreover, even if you meet the conditions, you won't be able to comprehend it without at least 100 years. What do you think of this condition? It's simple, right? Ha ha ha. Deng Xiu laughed crazily at the end of his sentence. It was impossible for Lu Ming to fulfill this condition. In order to cultivate the Yin-Yang God Eye, one would need two completely opposite types of divine grade divine powers. This required two people who were of the same mind. Even so, it would take at least 100 years to comprehend it even if one's talent was amazing. In 100 years, Autumn Moon would have been taken over by his master. Therefore, Deng Xiu had mentioned this condition because he wasn't afraid that Lu Ming would succeed. He had said it specifically to anger Lu Ming. He knew the method but couldn't cultivate it. He wanted to see how desperate Lu Ming would be. However, he was disappointed. Lu Ming's face didn't show any signs of despair. Instead, his eyes lit up as if he had seen the light of hope. Two completely opposite divine grade divine forces. Lu Ming controlled the Sun Divine Force and the Sun Divine Force. Weren't they two completely opposite divine grade divine forces? One was Yang and one was Yin. One was extreme Yang and the other was extreme Yin. Others needed two people to control two different divine forces, but Lu Ming could do it alone. Moreover, they had to be connected in mind. Even if two people were connected in mind, how could one person be connected? As long as Lu Ming could comprehend it before Autumn Moon was taken over, he would be able to break free and save Autumn Moon. 8 years. According to Deng Xiu, the stone eye would be able to successfully take over his body in 8 years. Lu Ming had to succeed in comprehending it within 8 years. Lu Ming ignored Deng Xiu and sat cross-legged under the stone tablet. He began to study the runes on the tablet. Humph, you want to comprehend the Yin-Yang God Eye? Dream on. Deng Xiu laughed disdainfully. He didn't believe that Lu Ming could comprehend it. First of all, he needed two completely opposite divine grade divine forces. Lu Ming couldn't have them. He thought that Lu Ming was desperate and knew that he couldn't get out, so he was just putting on an act for him to see. He, wait patiently. When my master succeeds in taking over your body, he will kill you. Deng Xiu sneered and retreated to the side to monitor Lu Ming. Lu Ming looked at the runes on the stone tablet wholeheartedly. The stone tablet was covered with mysterious runes that intertwined with each other to form a mysterious pattern. Lu Ming looked at it for a while and felt dizzy. Just as Deng Xiu said, even if one met the requirements and had exceptional talent, it wasn't easy to comprehend the Yin-Yang God Eye. It was too difficult. It was harder to cultivate than any of Lu Ming's secret skills. After resting for a while, Lu Ming continued to comprehend it. Time flew, and a few months passed in the blink of an eye. Lu Ming finally understood something. Chapter 3065. After a few months of comprehension, Lu Ming finally had an idea of what was going on. The Yin-Yang God Eyes was based on two things. The first was the two completely opposite divine powers. For example, extreme Yin and extreme cold, darkness and light, or even a combination of fast and slow, as long as the two opposite divine powers worked together. The second was the runes on the stone tablet. When the two opposite divine powers worked together with the runes, they could evolve into endless changes in his eyes and evolve into terrifying killing moves. However, these runes were too complicated, especially the ones that formed the Yin-Yang God Eyes. The more Lu Ming looked at them, the more he felt that there were endless changes in them. Mysterious. It's really mysterious. Lu Ming exclaimed. However, This aroused Lu Ming's competitive spirit even more. Next, Lu Ming focused even more on comprehending. Time passed, day by day, month by month. Time flew by, and almost 4 years had passed. At this moment, 10 years had passed since Lu Ming and the others entered Xingyue ancient city. All these years, Lu Ming had been sitting cross-legged under the stone tablet, not moving at all. On this day, Lu Ming, who had been closing his eyes, suddenly opened his eyes. There were no eyeballs in his eyes at all. There were only 2 colors in his eyes. On the left, it was dark like an abyss. On the right, it was snow-white and emitted a holy light. In the next moment, dense runes flashed continuously in Lu Ming's eyes. After a long while, they disappeared. Lu Ming's eyes also returned to normal. It's been almost 4 years, and I've finally mastered it. Lu Ming muttered. The difficulty of cultivating this yin-yang god eyes was beyond Lu Ming's imagination. Given Lu Ming's talent, regardless of whether he was cultivating other secret skills or divine skills, his speed was astonishingly fast and far surpassed that of ordinary people. However, it took him almost 4 years to cultivate this kind of secret skill at the entry level. Now that I've mastered it, I should be able to leave this formation. Lu Ming whispered. His eyes filled with a cold, murderous intent. Another 4 years had passed. Hopefully, the mid-autumn moon could hold on. Lu Ming slowly got up and walked out of the array. Oh my, after sitting here for 4 years, there's finally some movement? Don't tell me you want to kneel and beg for mercy? Deng Xiao mocked when he saw Lu Ming stand up. This time I'll kill you, Lu Ming said coldly. What? Kill me? Ha ha, you've been sitting there for 4 years. Have you lost your mind? If you want to kill me, can you come out? Why don't you come out first? Ha ha. Deng Xiao laughed mockingly, but his laughter became softer and softer. In the end, his laughter got stuck in his throat and he couldn't laugh anymore. His huge eye was filled with disbelief. This was because Lu Ming's eyes had undergone a major change. Countless runes appeared in his eyes, interweaving into a strange pattern. Afterward, in the void in front of Lu Ming, many runes appeared out of thin air. These runes were like threads, intertwining with each other and flying towards the light screen formed by the formation. Chi-chi. These runes collided with the light screen of the formation, creating a sizzling sound. Then, the light screen was cut open, forming a door. The formation was broken. Lu Ming took a step forward and was out of the formation. At this moment, Deng Xiao stared at Lu Ming as if he had seen a ghost. He shouted in disbelief. Yin-yang god eyes. How could you have mastered yin-yang god eyes? This is impossible. This is impossible. Deng Xiao shouted like a madman. This was completely beyond his comprehension. Nothing is impossible when it comes to me, Lu Ming said coldly. Deng Xiao was shocked and quickly retreated. Lu Ming was about to give chase when he suddenly staggered and almost fell. At the same time, he felt a stabbing pain in his eyes and 2 streams of blood flowed out. I didn't expect that using the yin-yang god eyes would put such a huge burden on my body and eyes. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. When he used the yin-yang god eyes to break the formation, Lu Ming's divine power was depleted. He felt weak and his eyes were severely injured. Although the yin-yang god eyes was powerful, it had a high requirement to use it. The yin-yang god eyes are divided into yin-yang and yang-yang. If I use them separately, it might be better. However, using both at the same time is too much of a burden. I have to be careful in the future. Lu Ming thought to himself. Men, kill this brat for me. At this moment, Deng Xiao finally reacted and yelled. Swoosh, swoosh. As soon as Deng Xiao's voice fell, figures rushed out from all directions. These figures all had huge eyes, and they looked exactly like Deng Xiao. It was very disgusting. Clearly, they were the same as Deng Xiao. They were all formed from his master's minced flesh. Kill this brat. These eyeballs roared loudly. Beams of divine light shot out from their eyes and charged toward Lu Ming. Ice chains. At this moment, the divine power in the quantum formula surged out and Lu Ming's body was filled with divine power. Then, 9 ice chains flew out and blocked in front of Lu Ming. The divine light bombarded the ice chains, but they were all blocked by the ice chains. That's all there is to it. Then, go to hell. Lu Ming's cold voice could be heard. After exchanging blows, Lu Ming discovered that the power of these eyeballs was ordinary. The most powerful one was only a half-step divine king. Lu Ming used the ancient god body and turned into a green-armored ancient god. He shook his long spear and shot out beams of spear light towards the eyeballs. Bam, bam, bam. These eyeballs were pierced by the spear light and exploded. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere. In the blink of an eye, dozens of eyeballs were killed. Moon slash. Then, Lu Ming used the moon slash again. A crescent-shaped spear light slashed out and killed a large number of eyeballs. No wonder you didn't dare to attack me directly. Instead, you trapped me in a formation. Your strength is average. Lu Ming had a thought. He held the long spear in his hand and charged toward the group of eyeballs, killing them all. In fact, it was normal. These eyeballs were their owners in the early days of the Heavenly Palace era when they fought with the owner of the cave mansion. The owner of the cave mansion destroyed their bodies and left behind some flesh and blood. After countless years, they evolved into evil creatures. No matter how strong their owners were, some of the flesh and blood that had been destroyed had lost a lot of spirituality after so many years. Naturally, the creatures they evolved into would not be that strong. Soon, hundreds of eyeballs were killed by Lu Ming. Bam! Lu Ming stepped out and closed in on Deng Xiao. Brat, you are courting death. Deng Xiao shouted in horror. He turned around and fled towards one of the many passages. So it's this passage. Saves me the trouble of looking for it. Lu Ming sneered. The passage that Deng Xiao escaped through was probably the place where Qiu Autumn Moon and his owner were. Deng Xiao was afraid and would most likely escape to his owner. Chapter 3066. Deng Xiao fled in front while Lu Ming chased after him leisurely. Along the way, those eyeball monsters kept attacking Lu Ming, but they were all easily killed by Lu Ming. Not long after, they went through a few passages and came to a bronze door. Master, save me, save me! Deng Xiao screamed in horror and pushed the bronze door with all his might. Asterisk Kacha. Asterisk the bronze door was opened. The moment the bronze door was opened, Lu Ming saw the scene behind the door. Behind the door was a stone room. In the middle of the stone room, a young lady was sitting cross-legged. It was Autumn Moon. From a distance, Lu Ming could see that Autumn Moon's face revealed a trace of pain. She seemed to be struggling to hold on. Her body was covered with a layer of 9-colored divine light. However, compared to a few years ago, the 9-colored divine light on Autumn Moon's body seemed to have dimmed a lot. On top of Autumn Moon's head, there was an eyeball with a diameter of a few meters. It was flickering with a black radiance and was constantly approaching Autumn Moon. Seeing this scene, Lu Ming was slightly relieved. At least, Autumn Moon was still holding on and had not been taken over by the other party. However, the anger in Lu Ming's heart burned fiercely. Master, save me! Deng Xiao screamed and wanted to rush towards the stone eyeball. Moon slaying, Lu Ming said coldly. His long spear slashed down and a crescent-shaped spear light slashed towards Deng Xiao. Deng Xiao's cultivation was only equivalent to an ordinary half-step divine king. He could not block Lu Ming's attack. The spear light slashed through and Deng Xiao screamed miserably as he was killed by Lu Ming. Lu Ming strode towards the door. Behind the door was a huge stone room. However, it was in a mess. The walls of the stone room were filled with cracks and dents. It seemed like a great battle had taken place here. The buildings here were filled with runes and were incomparably tough. The strength of those who could fill the walls with cracks and dents was definitely astonishing. This was most likely left behind by the Great War at the beginning of the Heavenly Palace era. Lu Ming glanced around and found nothing out of the ordinary. Then, he strode toward the mid-autumn moon. Get lost, brat! At this moment, the stone eyeball above Autumn Moon's head let out a loud roar. You're the one who should get lost! Lu Ming coldly shouted. His long spear swept out, sweeping towards the stone bead. You're courting death! The stone bead let out a loud cry. Then, a beam of divine light shot out from the stone eyeball and blasted towards Lu Ming. Clang! The divine light bombarded the long spear, causing it to vibrate violently. Lu Ming felt a terrifying power coming from the spear, and his body involuntarily trembled as he retreated. Whoosh! Whoosh! Following that, divine light continuously shot out from the stone eyeball. In the blink of an eye, it had shot out dozens of beams of divine light. Space whistled as dozens of divine lights shot towards Lu Ming. Moon slaying, his divine power surged wildly. Lu Ming continuously cast the moon-slaying technique for more than 10 times. More than 10 crescent-shaped spear gleams slashed out, blocking the dozens of divine lights. Lu Ming didn't dare to use the exploding star technique. Exploding star was an indiscriminate attack. If he used it, it would envelop the mid-autumn moon as well. A 5th-level celestial god with such strength. Wait a minute, you have the origin ancient words in your body. They are the words battle and quantity. Ha ha ha, the heavens are really helping me. Once I possess this girl and combine the 2 origin ancient words, this heavenly lord will definitely regain his glory. No, I might even become stronger. The stone eyeball started to let out a surprised sound, then it laughed as if it was in ecstasy. Lu Ming was shocked. This stone eyeball actually saw through the 2 origin ancient characters in his body right away. In the past, Lu Ming had met many divine kings, but none of them could see the ancient origin words in his body. Because the ancient origin words could hide themselves, outsiders couldn't see them at all. This stone eyeball was incredible. I must destroy this eyeball. Lu Ming's eyes were cold. Then, he waved his spear and kept attacking the stone eyeball. Kid, go to hell. A cold voice came out from the stone eyeball. It vibrated slightly as if it was preparing for a more terrifying attack. But then, mid-autumn moon shouted and the 9-colored divine light on her body suddenly became bright. A 9-colored heart could be vaguely seen beating in her heart. The sacred heart of 9 orifices. Apparently, mid-autumn moon had also noticed Lu Ming. When the stone eyeball was distracted to attack Lu Ming, she also launched a counterattack. Damn it! The stone eyeball let out a roar. It had to divert more energy to deal with mid-autumn moon and less energy to deal with Lu Ming. Boom! Boom! In the stone chamber, the rumbling continued. Lu Ming kept attacking and finally got close to the stone eyeball. Dong! Finally, Lu Ming seized the opportunity and hit the stone eyeball with his spear. The stone eyeball shook violently, but nothing happened. Lu Ming didn't break it. Kid, you can't break my defense. Although so many years have passed and my strength is less than 1 billion of my peak, my defense is still there. You can't break it. Ha ha ha. The stone eyeball laughed. Is that so? Then I'll pull you apart. Lu Ming said coldly. Then, 9 ice chains flew out and wrapped around the stone eyeball. A layer of ice crystals appeared on the stone eyeball, trying to freeze it. Get lost. The stone eyeball roared and black divine light rushed out from its surface. The ice crystals exploded one after another. The black divine light hit the ice chains. The ice chains shook violently and cracks appeared on some of the ice chains. The ice chains couldn't withstand it anymore. Come here. Lu Ming shouted and desperately pulled the ice chains, trying to pull the stone eyeball away from Autumn Moon's head. As long as the stone eyeball was pulled away, Autumn Moon would be saved. Even if they couldn't kill the stone eyeball, they could still escape. Pang! Pang! Under the constant assault of the stone eyeball's divine light, 2 of the ice chains were finally broken. You can't pull me away. The stone eyeball roared. Is that so? Lu Ming's eyes were calm. With a wave of his hand, 2 more ice chains flew out and wrapped around the stone eyeball. Next, as long as the ice chains broke, Lu Ming would immediately condense them. Lu Ming had plenty of divine power to waste. A moment later, the stone eyeball was finally pulled away by Lu Ming. After being pulled away a little, Autumn Moon immediately seized the opportunity to resist. Kid, you're courting death. You're courting death. Don't think that I, the Lord of Heaven, have no way to deal with you. Dang! A furious roar came from within the stone eyeball. Then, a beam of light flew out from within the stone eyeball. When the beam of light flew out, it turned into a figure. It was a middle-aged man wearing ancient armor. The most peculiar thing about him was his eyes. They were extremely bright, like 2 suns. Chapter 3067. The middle-aged man was obviously the original form of the stone eyeball. At this moment, he was staring at Lu Ming furiously and roaring. Kid, I'll let you experience the God-destroying light of this Lord Heaven. It's your honor to die under the God-destroying light. As soon as he finished speaking, the middle-aged man turned into a ray of divine light and rushed towards Lu Ming, enveloping Lu Ming in divine light. As soon as he was enveloped by the divine light, Lu Ming felt goosebumps all over his body. He felt a great sense of danger. Sure enough, in the next moment, Lu Ming felt waves of piercing pain all over his body. The light seemed to be melting his body. Block it! Lu Ming roared in his heart. He unleashed all his divine power and used the 9 layers golden armor to cover his body to block the divine light. However, the 9 layers golden armor was useless. Chi. Under the divine light, the 9 layers golden armor emitted a sizzling sound, as if ice and snow had met fire and was constantly melting. Kid, you actually control so many types of divine power? Amazing, really amazing. The stone eyeball's voice sounded again, full of surprise. Obviously, the other party didn't know about the existence of the universe myriad Dao technique. However, at this moment, Lu Ming didn't have the time to think about it. He only wanted to block the divine light because it was too terrifying. It constantly penetrated Lu Ming's 9 layers golden armor and enveloped Lu Ming's body. As soon as the divine light touched Lu Ming's skin, Lu Ming's body felt as if it was being burned by fire. A piercing pain spread all over his body. Lu Ming was even horrified to find that wherever the divine light touched, Lu Ming's flesh and blood melted like ice and snow. This scene was extremely terrifying. If this continued, Lu Ming's body would be melted by the divine light. The other party called this divine light the God-destroying light. It was indeed terrifying. The other party's strength was less than 1,000,000,000,000 of his peak, but it still had such amazing power. Ice chains. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He recalled the frost shackles and wrapped them around his body. He wanted to use the frost shackles to block the attack of the God-slaying light. However, the ice shackles were unable to withstand the God-destroying light. Under the God-destroying light, the ice shackles rapidly melted. Old Liang, do you have a way to absorb this divine light? At the critical moment, Lu Ming transmitted his voice to the measuring formula. There's nothing I can do about it. This is the light of destruction, and the other party is an ancient existence. His willpower is too strong. How can I possibly absorb the power that he cultivated? Unless your cultivation level is comparable to his, then I'll be able to unleash its power. The quantifying formula said. Lu Ming was speechless and placed his hopes on the rock spirit. Old man, do you have any ideas? If you don't help me this time, I'm going to die. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to the rock spirit. I'm just an incomplete rock spirit. What can I do? Moreover, the other party is the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven. The God-destroying light of the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven is one of the most terrifying forces in the world. Sigh, it seems that I'm too unlucky. I just acknowledged you as my master and you're going to die. Sigh, the rock spirit heaved a long sigh. Lu Ming was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Not only did the old man refuse to help, but he even cursed him. Lu Ming wished he could stomp on the old man. Asterisk sizzle. Asterisk at this moment, more and more God-destroying light touched Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming discovered that his flesh was melting. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before Lu Ming was completely melted by the God-destroying light. Unfortunately, Lu Ming couldn't do anything about it. Ha 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 boy, you're really my lucky star. You actually brought me 2 origin ancient characters. Opportunity. A great opportunity. The other party laughed and became more and more excited. On the other hand, Lu Ming became more and more anxious. Could it be that he and Autumn Moon were going to die here today? Let's fight. Lu Ming gritted his teeth and decided to try burning the ancient god's heart. It was better than dying here. Although Lu Ming felt that it might not be useful even if he burned the ancient god's heart. The god-destroying light was too strange. But he had to give it a try. However, before burning the ancient god's heart, Lu Ming had to take out the purple copper coffin. The last time Lu Ming burned the ancient god's heart, it was because of the purple copper coffin that he recovered. If burning the ancient god's heart could deal with the stone eyeball, maybe he could recover with the help of the purple copper coffin? He had to give it a try, right? Lu Ming's mind stirred and the purple copper coffin flew out from the frightening feather painting. But just as the purple copper coffin flew out, something strange happened. The purple copper coffin suddenly shone brightly and flew out from between Lu Ming's eyebrows, floating above Lu Ming's head. Crack! The lid of the purple copper coffin opened by itself, revealing a gap. A terrifying and unimaginable aura spread out from the gap of the coffin lid. Compared to this aura, Lu Ming felt that he was just a speck of dust. No, the strongest divine king that Lu Ming had met was just a speck of dust in front of this aura. Lu Ming seemed to see the great battle of the ancient gods through the lid of the purple copper coffin. Ah, why do you have such a thing? Why do you have such a thing? At this moment, the divine Eye Lord of Heaven suddenly screamed. His voice was filled with endless horror and fear. He seemed to recognize the purple copper coffin. Bas! The aura of the purple copper coffin enveloped Lu Ming's body. The light of destruction on Lu Ming's body began to vibrate violently. Then, it left Lu Ming's body and turned into a figure again. It was the middle-aged man who called himself the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven. The middle-aged man's face was filled with endless horror and disbelief. How could such a legendary thing appear on your body? Impossible! Impossible! The Divine Eye Lord of Heaven roared and tried to escape. However, there seemed to be a force of attraction from the purple copper coffin that firmly locked onto the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven. No matter how the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven struggled, it was useless. He was flying toward the gap of the purple copper coffin. No, no, no! The Divine Eye Lord of Heaven roared in horror and struggled madly, but it was useless. After a few breaths, the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven was completely sucked into the purple copper coffin. After the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven was sucked in, the purple copper coffin closed automatically. All the aura disappeared and the purple copper coffin returned to its simple and unadorned appearance. Then, it fell and pressed down on Lu Ming. Lu Ming was shocked. He quickly controlled the frightening feather painting and sucked the purple copper coffin into it. Phew! Lu Ming let out a long sigh as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. This time it was really thrilling. He did not expect the purple copper coffin to work at the critical moment and suck the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven in. Until now, Lu Ming was still a little stunned. Everything had changed too quickly. After a long while, Lu Ming recovered and walked toward the autumn moon. At this moment, the autumn moon shouted softly, "Keep." Then, the 9-colored divine light on the autumn moon shone brightly and covered the stone eyeball. The stone eyeball began to shrink and flew toward the autumn moon's body. Chapter 3068. The 9-colored divine light shrouded the stone eyeball. The stone eyeball began to shrink and flew toward Qiu Autumn Moon's body. *Dream *Little Talk Star. Calm Lu Ming was shocked and was about to step forward to stop it. Master, don't act rashly. This is a great opportunity for this girl. Shiling's voice sounded. Great opportunity? Lu Ming was puzzled. He stopped in his tracks. Yes, this stone eyeball can be said to be transformed from one of the eyes of the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven. It contains all the inheritance of the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven. Now that the remnant soul of the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven has been completely destroyed, this stone eyeball will be absorbed and integrated by this girl. This girl will obtain the inheritance of the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven. This is the inheritance of the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven. This girl also has the 9 apertures Sacred Heart. Her future achievements will be limitless. She will be a capable assistant of Master. Shiling explained. Lu Ming was delighted. The soul of the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven had been taken away by the purple copper coffin. Now, this stone eyeball was equivalent to a treasure that could be absorbed and refined. Qiu Autumn Moon was going to refine the stone eyeball and obtain the inheritance of the other party. By the way, what's the background of the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven? Lu Ming asked. His background is amazing. How many people in the primitive universe dare to call themselves the Lord of Heaven? Every one of them is an overlord in the world. Shiling said. In the end, you didn't say anything about the other party's background. Lu Ming curled his lips. The Heavenly Palace. Do you know about it? Shiling asked. The Heavenly Palace. Lu Ming raised his eyebrows and a trace of shock flashed in his eyes. Is he from the Heavenly Palace? Yes, the title of the Lord of Heaven is only in the Heavenly Palace. Every Lord of Heaven is a giant in the Heavenly Palace. Shiling explained. Lu Ming was shocked. The primitive universe was divided into the incipient God era and the Heavenly Palace era. The reason why it was divided into the Heavenly Palace era was because of the Heavenly Palace. After the incipient God era, the Heavenly Palace had become the real overlord of the desolate universe. It ruled the entire universe. The Divine Eye Lord of Heaven was actually a giant from the Heavenly Palace. Such a background was truly shocking. However, according to legend, there was more than one Heavenly Palace in the primitive universe. Lu Ming did not know the details. After all, such a force was too far away from Lu Ming. Even the Taishu dynasty was just an ant in front of the Heavenly Palace. However, Lu Ming couldn't help but reveal a look of joy when he thought about how he could obtain the inheritance of the Lord of Heaven by Autumn Moon. The inheritance of the Lord of Heaven was incredible. At this moment, the stone eyeball shrank and turned into a jet of light, shooting into Autumn's body and disappearing. Boom! In the next moment, an intimidating aura exploded from Autumn's body. The aura was earth-shaking, filling the stone chamber. It was incomparably violent. Autumn's soft body trembled. Her face paled and blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. What's going on? Lu Ming was frightened. Oh no, there's still residual energy in the eyeball of Lord of Divine Eye. There's too much energy. Even if this girl has the 9 orifices sacred heart, she won't be able to absorb that much at once. Her body is going to explode from the energy. Xueqi hurried to shout. What can we do? Lu Ming was extremely worried. At this moment, Autumn coughed out another mouthful of blood. Her body swelled up. Kid, hurry up. This is ownerless energy. I can absorb it. I'll transfer some of it to you. Help her share some of it and she'll be fine. Measuring Formula shouted. Yes, yes, yes. Lu Ming nodded repeatedly. He was too concerned. Lu Ming did not think of such a simple method. Lu Ming strode forward and came to Autumn's side. His glabella shone and the measuring formula flew out. A devouring force shrouded Autumn's body. Suddenly, the energy in Autumn's body was absorbed by the measuring formula. Autumn's body began to shrink. Soon, she returned to her original size. Autumn's aura also began to stabilize. The sacred heart of 9 orifices on her chest shone brightly and pulsated like a drum. Boundless energy poured into the sacred heart of 9 orifices. In the end, Lu Ming vaguely saw a stone eyeball fly into Autumn's 9 orifices sacred heart and merged with it. At this time, the measuring formula flew back and returned to Lu Ming's sea of consciousness. Kid, this is the remaining energy of the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven. I can refine it a little and transfer it to you. You can absorb it and improve your cultivation. Measuring formula said. Is Autumn okay? Lu Ming asked. She's fine. Don't worry. Most of the energy has been integrated into her 9 orifices sacred heart. Her cultivation will improve by leaps and bounds later. Xueqi explained. Lu Ming was relieved. He removed his ancient god body and returned to his original form. He sat cross-legged at the side. Sure enough, soon, a surge of energy from the measuring formula flowed into Lu Ming's body. The energy was shocking. It was extremely easy to absorb. Lu Ming executed the Universe Tao technique and began to absorb the energy. He converted it into different kinds of god force to strengthen his godly flames. The 9 godly flames in his dantian continued to grow stronger. Lu Ming's cultivation rose rapidly too. It was approaching the peak 5th layer heaven god realm. A few days later, Lu Ming's cultivation had reached the peak 5th layer heaven god realm. He then began to break through to the 6th layer heaven god realm. Bang bang bang. Loud explosions kept coming out of Lu Ming's body. Another 7 days were gone. The energy absorbed by the measuring formula had been transferred to Lu Ming. A loud explosion took place inside Lu Ming's body. A powerful aura burst out from Lu Ming's body. 6th layer heaven god realm. Lu Ming's cultivation broke through to the 6th layer heaven god realm after absorbing the energy transferred to him by the measuring formula. Lu Ming had mastered many kinds of god force. It would take a lot of energy to improve his cultivation. This time, he had broken through to the next level. If it were someone else, it would be enough to break through to the next level. Lu Ming rose to his feet. His eyes flickered. His battle strength had grown stronger after his breakthrough. If he were to face geniuses like Yu Han and Chu Baxing now, he would be able to crush them easily. Lu Ming thought. He then shifted his gaze to Qiu Moon. Lu Ming's face flickered with astonishment after taking a glance. Qiu Moon's aura was shockingly strong too. 7th layer heaven god realm. Qiu Moon's cultivation had reached the 7th layer heaven god realm. When they first entered Xingyue ancient city, Qiu Moon's cultivation was only at the 2nd layer heaven god realm. On top of that, Qiu Moon had also cultivated the Universe Tao technique. She had mastered many kinds of god force. The energy she needed to improve her cultivation was no less than Lu Ming's. However, Qiu Moon had broken through to the 7th layer heaven god realm in such a short time. The speed of her improvement was shocking. While Lu Ming was thinking, another shocking aura burst out of Qiu Moon's body. Her god force boiled like a tide. A powerful aura spread out in all directions. 8th layer heaven god realm. Lu Ming was tongue-tied, looking stunned. Chapter 3069. In just a short while, Xueqi had another breakthrough and reached the 8th layer heaven god realm. This speed was too fast, wasn't it? Master, don't be too surprised. The girl has obtained the inheritance of the godly Eye Lord of Heaven, and with the help of the 9 orifices Sacred Heart, it's normal for her to improve rapidly. The Shirling explained. That's right. Besides, I've only absorbed a portion of the energy. It's like you've only taken a sip of the soup, while the girl has eaten all the meat. It's normal for her to improve rapidly. The quantifying formula also explained. Lu Ming nodded. He had only taken a sip of the soup, and his cultivation had improved from the 5th layer heaven god realm to the 6th layer heaven god realm. Xueqi had completely inherited the inheritance of the godly Eye Lord of Heaven, thus her cultivation had skyrocketed. Of course, it was only at the beginning. It was impossible for her to keep improving in the future. Xueqi's cultivation had yet to come to an end. In the blink of an eye, another 7 days had passed. The aura on Xueqi's body rose sharply with another rumble. She had another breakthrough. 9th layer heaven god realm. Xueqi's cultivation had reached the 9th layer heaven god realm. Besides, an ancient aura was emitting from Xueqi's body. The origin god force factor. Lu Ming's eyes glittered. Xueqi had awakened the origin god force factor. However, just like Lu Ming, only her ruler god force had awakened the origin god force factor. The rest of her god force had yet to be awakened. Xueqi's aura finally stabilized. It did not continue to rise. A few days later, Xueqi's aura finally stabilized. She then opened her eyes. Young master! Xueqi exclaimed and threw herself into Lu Ming's arms. Xueqi was aware of what had happened before. She originally thought that she would never be able to see Lu Ming and that she would be possessed by the divine Eye Lord of Heaven. She did not expect that halfway through, Lu Ming would come and kill the divine Eye Lord of Heaven in one fell swoop. And because she had been in a stalemate with the god Eye Lord of Heaven for many years, she had a connection. When the god Eye Lord of Heaven's soul was destroyed, she automatically absorbed the inheritance left behind by the god Eye Lord of Heaven. Mid-autumn moon. Everything is fine now. Let's go. Lu Ming caressed Autumn's hair. The two of them were affectionate for a while before they left the place hand in hand. Along the way, they would occasionally encounter those eyeball monsters, but they were easily dealt with by Lu Ming and Autumn. Autumn's cultivation had skyrocketed too much, so she was not used to it yet. She was still not very familiar with controlling the divine power in her body. She needed time to practice. He believed that when Autumn fully adapted to her current cultivation, her strength would be shockingly strong. One had to know that Autumn also controlled many kinds of divine power. In addition, she had awakened the origin divine power factor and was a level 9 heavenly god. Once she fully adapted, even if Lu Ming did his best, he might not be a match for Autumn. Soon, the two of them arrived at the outermost stone room. Above their heads, there was a rumbling sound. That was the sound of the whirlpool in the myriad moon lake. When they looked up, they could still see the whirlpool. It was very strange. Let's rush out, Lu Ming said. Okay. Autumn nodded. The two of them rose into the air and rushed into the whirlpool. Whoosh! The whirlpool rotated with great force, forming a shocking force that blocked their path. It was not that easy for the two of them to go against the flow. Starburst! Lu Ming shouted and transformed into his ancient god body. He used all his strength and stabbed out with his spear. Rumble! The lake water exploded, forming a passage. The two of them took the opportunity to fly forward. However, the lake water soon surged and blocked the passage again. God-destroying light! Autumn shouted and slashed out with her palm. A pitch-black divine light was slashed at the whirlpool in front of them. This is... Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He was a little surprised. He did not expect Autumn to master the Lord of Heaven's God-destroying light so quickly. The God-destroying light was extremely powerful. Even if Autumn had just mastered it, she could still unleash shocking power. A passage was immediately slashed out by the God-destroying light. The two of them continued to move forward. Just like that, the two of them worked together and took turns to attack. Soon, they passed through the whirlpool and flew out of the whirlpool, arriving above the myriad moon lake. Huff! The two of them exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. They were finally out. This trip was daunting but not dangerous. They even had a breakthrough in their cultivation, especially Autumn Moon, who had obtained the inheritance of the Lord of Heaven. Autumn Moon, you've obtained the inheritance of the Lord of Heaven. Don't let anyone know about this, Lu Ming said to Autumn Moon. The inheritance of the Lord of Heaven was definitely an unimaginable opportunity. If others knew about it, it would definitely bring about a disaster, just like the origin ancient characters. Understood, young master. Autumn Moon smiled. By the way, Autumn Moon, how did you get into this whirlpool? Lu Ming asked curiously. I was forced in. Autumn Moon said. You were forced to go in? Huh. A cold light flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. A member of the Winged Men, the Thunderous Winged Men. Autumn Moon said. The Thunderous Winged Men. Lu Ming thought of the young man from the Thunderous Winged Men that he had met when he first arrived at the Myriad Moon Lake. It was the young man who had guided Lu Ming and got Lu Ming into the whirlpool. Lu Ming immediately described the appearance of the young man from the Thunderous Winged Men that he had met. Yes, it's him. Autumn Moon said. Why did he force you into the whirlpool? Lu Ming asked. He said that someone had asked him to deal with you, young master. Since I'm your subordinate, he wanted to take me down to threaten you. He also said that I must have some secret since I was able to pass the gate of heaven at the second level of the heaven god realm. If I didn't tell him, he would. At this point, Autumn Moon bit her red lips and didn't continue. However, Lu Ming could guess what Autumn Moon was going to say. Lu Ming held Autumn Moon's hand and asked her to continue. Of course, I wouldn't let him succeed. However, I was no match for him and I couldn't escape. In the end, I had no choice but to take the risk and rush into the whirlpool. I didn't expect that there would be another world inside the whirlpool. After entering, I met the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven and he wanted to take over my body. After that, I tried my best to resist the Divine Eye Lord of Heaven. Then young master came. Autumn Moon briefly recounted what had happened in the past few years. The Thunderous Winged Men. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with cold light and cold-killing intent. He completely understood. The Thunderous Winged Men were most likely invited by the Jin family or the Qin family to kill Lu Ming in the Xingyue ancient city. After entering the Xingyue ancient city, the young man from the Winged Men met Autumn Moon near the Wanyue Lake. He wanted to capture Autumn Moon and use her to threaten Lu Ming. At the same time, he wanted to obtain the secrets on Autumn Moon. He even wanted to scheme against Autumn Moon. Autumn Moon had no choice but to rush into the whirlpool to avoid the young man. The young man definitely didn't dare to enter the whirlpool. Therefore, he had been wandering around the area to cultivate. After many years, Autumn Moon didn't come out. He probably thought that there was danger in the whirlpool and that Autumn Moon had died inside. Later on, Lu Ming came. The young man had bad intentions and tricked Lu Ming into entering the whirlpool. He wanted to kill Lu Ming too. Chapter 3070. That person must die. Lu Ming said coldly as a cold light flashed in his eyes. This person was vicious and almost killed Qiu Moon. In Lu Ming's heart, he had already sentenced this person to death. If there was a chance, he must kill this person. Then, Lu Ming looked around. Unfortunately, he did not see the whereabouts of the Winged Man clan near the Myriad Moon Lake. It seemed that he had left long ago. Qiu Moon, 10 years is almost up. Let's go out. Lu Ming said. Qiu Moon nodded obediently. Immediately, the two of them chose a direction and turned into two rays of light, quickly leaving. There was a special passage to leave Star Crescent Ancient City. The passage on the side of 9 Extinction Heavenly King Mansion was in a huge valley east of Star Crescent Ancient City. The people from other Heavenly King Mansions had other channels. Every time someone entered the Star Moon Ancient City, they would exit through a special passageway. This passageway would open every 10 years. Now, the 10 years were almost up. The Myriad Moon Lake was west of Star Crescent Ancient City. There was still a long way to go from the east. The two of them rushed at full speed and spent 7 days before they arrived at the exit. In the sky above a big valley, a huge vortex appeared. This was the exit passage. No one could explain why such a passage would open 10 years after they entered. Perhaps, it was a formation set up by the experts who built Star Crescent Ancient City. Everyone could only guess. When the two of them arrived, they found that there were people flying towards them from all directions. Some of them directly flew into the vortex and disappeared. Obviously, Some of them had already left. Brother Lu. Brother Lu Ming. A few voices sounded. Lu Ming turned around and saw Wu Ming, Wu Yu and the others flying towards him. Brother Wu Ming, Brother Wu Yu. Lu Ming smiled and greeted them. Miss Qiu Moon is fine. That's great. When Wu Ming and the others saw Qiu Moon, they also smiled. It's a long story. Let's go out and talk about it. Lu Ming said. Immediately, everyone flew into the whirlpool. After flying into the whirlpool, they felt the world spinning around them. In the next moment, Lu Ming discovered that he had already left Star Moon Ancient City and was back outside the city walls. With a glance, Lu Ming saw the elder of the Starry Sky Battalion, Bai Li, sitting cross-legged in the air. In addition, there were many figures standing in the sky. They were the geniuses of the Starry Barracks from the Starry Moon Ancient City. Lu Ming saw Su Yan, the young man, and Jin Yuan. Su Yan, the young man clad in animal skin, and the others nodded at Lu Ming as a greeting. As for Jin Yuan, his eyes were extremely cold and filled with killing intent. Suddenly, Lu Ming felt a cold killing intent enveloping him. Lu Ming looked around and saw a beautiful woman coldly staring at him. Lan Ling. Who else could this woman be other than Lan Ling, who had been trying to kill him? However, Lan Ling did not attack this time. She only stared coldly at Lu Ming and then glanced at Autumn Moon. Young master, who is that lady? She seems to have a deep grudge against you. Did you do something wrong? Autumn Moon was very sensitive. She noticed Lan Ling and whispered softly. Little girl, don't let your imagination run wild. I am a gentleman. Lu Ming immediately said righteously. She could not let her imagination run wild and ruin his character. Autumn Moon smiled and did not say much. It's him. At this moment, Lu Ming's eyes turned cold and his body emitted a cold killing intent. He saw a young man from the Winged Men tribe with lightning flashing on his wings. He was the one who had guided Lu Ming into the whirlpool at the Myriad Moon Lake. He was also the one who wanted to deal with Autumn Moon and force Autumn Moon into the whirlpool. Obviously, this person had come out earlier than Lu Ming and the rest. Boom! Lu Ming's body emitted a powerful aura. He took a step forward and charged towards the young man from the Winged Men tribe. Young master, be careful. Autumn Moon also noticed the young man. She knew that she could not persuade Lu Ming given his temper. She could only remind him worriedly and followed closely behind Lu Ming. Wu Ming and the rest looked at each other and followed behind Lu Ming. The people in front of Lu Ming were suppressed by Lu Ming's aura. They retreated and opened up a path for him. Lu Ming quickly moved towards the young man from the Winged Men tribe. The young man from the Winged Men tribe also saw Lu Ming and Autumn Moon. His expression changed drastically. Damn it! The two of them entered the whirlpool and are still fine? What a blunder! The young man from the Winged Men tribe looked gloomy. Seeing that Lu Ming was getting closer and closer to him, the young man from the Winged Men tribe felt chills all over his body. He shouted, Lu Ming, what are you doing? Killing you. Lu Ming's reply was simple. His voice was bone-chilling. Killing me? What do you mean? I didn't offend you. Why do you want to kill me? You're simply insane and lawless. The young man from the Winged Men tribe shouted. Of course, he would not admit that he wanted to deal with Autumn Moon. Hee hee. Lu Ming sneered. His aura became more aggressive. He was too lazy to talk nonsense with the young man. A long spear appeared in his hand. A spear radiance burst out and charged towards the young man from the Winged Men tribe. The young man from the Winged Men tribe was shocked. His aura surged, especially the pair of wings on his back. Thunder rumbled. Whoosh! He flapped his wings and they were like divine sabers piercing through the air. The thunderbolts on his wings transformed into two thunderbolt sabers that slashed toward Lu Ming. The thunder battle blades clashed with Lu Ming's spear radiance, causing a shockwave. The young man from the Winged Men tribe was not weak. He was a half-step divine king and his divine force had awakened to 99%. He was not far from fully awakening his divine force. However, how could he contend with Lu Ming's current strength? Boom! The thunder battle blades of the young man from the Winged Men tribe were shattered. The spear radiance did not stop and continued to charge towards the young man from the Winged Men tribe. The young man from the Winged Men tribe screamed in fear. His body soared into the sky, trying to dodge Lu Ming's spear radiance. However, he was too late. One of his thighs was pierced by the spear radiance and exploded. Ah! The The young man from the winged men tribe screamed in pain. He retreated a few thousand meters and vomited blood. What? So powerful. Lu Ming's strength is so terrifying? Many people gasped in shock. Not everyone had seen Lu Ming's attack. Only a small portion of them had seen Lu Ming's attack. Those who had not seen Lu Ming's attack were shocked when they saw Lu Ming injuring the young man from the winged men tribe. The young man from the winged men tribe was called Yi Xiang. He was the 16th young master of the winged men tribe. His talent was outstanding and he was quite famous in the Starry Camp. Yi Xiang's strength had undoubtedly increased after the trip to the Starry Crescent ancient city. However, he was still no match for Lu Ming. How could Lu Ming be so powerful? You guys don't know. Lu Ming defeated Jin Yuan. Someone whispered. Chapter 3071. Someone talked about how Lu Ming defeated Jin Yuan, which shocked everyone. Oh my god, is that true? Lu Ming defeated Jin Yuan? If I remember correctly, Lu Ming was only a 4th-level heavenly god when he entered Xingyue ancient city. How could he defeat Jin Yuan? That's too terrifying. After hearing that, many people found it hard to believe. There was a lot of discussion at the scene. Of course, most people still didn't know that Lu Ming had not only defeated Jin Yuan, but also the other peerless geniuses of the Heavenly King's Mansion in the process of fighting for the Life Spirit Vitality Stone. Only Jin Yuan, Su Yan, and the young man in beast skin knew about this. They didn't spread the news. If the others knew about this, their jaws would probably drop. After hearing that, Jin Yuan's face was so gloomy that it was about to drip water. Kill. Lu Ming ignored the discussion around him. Right now, he only wanted to kill Yi Xiang. Men, kill this kid for me. Seeing that Lu Ming was continuing to attack, Yi Xiang shouted in horror. He didn't expect Lu Ming to be so strong. Don't even think about hurting young master. On the side, a loud roar was heard. Bolts of lightning flashed. In the next moment, more than 10 figures appeared in front of Yi Xiang. These figures were all the geniuses of the Thunder-Winged Men clan. Yi Xiang was the 16th young master of the Thunder-Winged Men clan. Ordinary geniuses of the Winged Men clan had to listen to Yi Xiang's orders. Kid, you're courting death by attacking young master Yi Xiang. Lu Ming, surrender and follow us back to the Winged Men clan to accept your punishment. The geniuses of the Winged Men clan shouted, using the Winged Men clan to suppress Lu Ming. But obviously, they had miscalculated. Why would Lu Ming care about the Winged Men clan? Get lost. Lu Ming shouted coldly. Kid, you're very arrogant. Even if you're strong, do you think we can't do anything to you? Let's attack together and take down this kid. More than 10 geniuses of the Winged Men clan roared and released their powerful auras. Boom, boom. Releasing their auras, thunderbolts rumbled. More than 10 sky prides of the Winged Men race struck out at the same time. Flapping their wings, they sent bolts of thunderbolts towards Lu Ming. The power of lightning was already extremely strong. With so many sky prides joining forces, the power was truly frightening. Kill. Lu Ming let out a long roar. The battle character secret art was activated, and his spear swept out. A gigantic spear light was formed. It was as huge as a mountain as it pressed down on the genius of the Winged Men race. Boom, boom. Streaks of lightning collided with Lu Ming's spear light, erupting with intense rumbling sounds. Then those lightning bolts collapsed one after another, and the spear light continued to sweep out. The Winged Men prodigies' faces changed drastically as they shouted, "Block it! Block it!" They tried their best to use their strongest moves to block Lu Ming's attack. However, when the spear light swept past, the Winged Men race's sky prides were like cannonballs as they were sent flying by Lu Ming. They flew for tens of thousands of meters before coming to a stop. Then, they spat out mouthfuls of blood and were severely injured. After Lu Ming activated the battle character secret art, his combat strength increased by 4 times, and he severely injured the Winged Men race's sky prides. His cold gaze swept towards Yi Xiang once again. Yi Xiang's face was as pale as a sheet. He desperately flew towards Bai Li and shouted, "Elder Bai, save me! Save me! This Lu Ming has gone crazy." He could only pin his hopes on Bai Li now. Only Bai Li could save him at this moment. Kill! Lu Ming shouted as he thrust out his spear. A terrifying and sharp spear light pierced towards Yi Xiang. It was shockingly fast. Yi Xiang wanted to dodge, but he realized that his body seemed to have been locked in place. He couldn't dodge at all. He had a feeling that if he was hit by this move, he would die. No, no, no. Save me. Isyong screamed crazily. He was so scared that he almost peed his pants. His eyes were filled with horror. Just as the spear light was about to hit Isyong, a light screen suddenly appeared in front of Isyong at the critical moment. Bas! Lu Ming's spear light struck the light screen, causing it to vibrate slightly. Then, the spear light disappeared. The spear light was blocked. I'm saved. Isyong stammered. He was covered in cold sweat and his body was trembling non-stop. He was really scared to death just now. Lu Ming's face darkened as he looked up into the sky. Bai Li was sitting cross-legged in the sky. Only Bai Li could save Isyong. Obviously, the light screen just now was sent out by Isyong. Elder Bai, this person tried to assassinate my wife in Xingyue Ancient City. If my wife wasn't lucky, she would have died. I want to kill him. Why are you stopping me? Lu Ming's voice was neither servile nor overbearing as it spread across the entire place. Many people were enlightened as they looked at Qiu Moon who was beside Lu Ming. It turned out that Isyong wanted to assassinate Qiu Moon. No wonder Lu Ming wanted to kill Isyong the moment he saw him. If you have any grudges, you can settle them in Xingyue Ancient City or wait until you return to the Starry Camp. I don't care how you want to kill me. However, since you have left Xingyue Ancient City alive, I have the obligation to bring you back to the Starry Camp safely. Bai Li said. Elder Bai, are you sure you want to interfere? Lu Ming asked. That's right. Settle your grudges when you return to the Starry Camp. I won't interfere. Bai Li said. His voice was firm and there was no room for negotiation. In fact, Bai Li had no other choice. The Thunderwings clan had great influence in the Nine Extinction Heavenly King Palace. Not only in the Nine Extinction Heavenly King Palace, but also in the Taishu dynasty. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, if he let Isyong be killed by Lu Ming and did nothing, the Thunderwings clan would find trouble with him and he wouldn't be able to escape. As for Lu Ming, he didn't have any background. He naturally had to protect Isyong. Since Elder Bai has said so, I won't interfere. Lu Ming's eyes flickered a few times before he turned around and left. Bai Li's cultivation was unfathomable. It wasn't something that Lu Ming could contend against. If Bai Li was determined to interfere, he wouldn't be able to kill Isyong no matter what. If he insisted on taking action, not only would he fail to kill Isyong, he would also offend Bai Li. After weighing the pros and cons, Lu Ming could only give up and find another chance to kill Isyong in the future. There would be plenty of chances in the future. Lu Ming, I'll make sure you die a horrible death. Isyong stared at Lu Ming and roared in his heart. The scene calmed down once again. The crowd waited quietly for the others to come out from Xingyue Ancient City. In the blink of an eye, another 10 days had passed. All right, 10 years have passed. The passage in Xingyue Ancient City has been closed. Those who haven't come out won't be able to come out. Let's go back. Bai Li's voice reverberated throughout the crowd. He then led the crowd towards the wormhole. On the way, Isyong only followed beside Bai Li as he was afraid that Lu Ming would attack him. Chapter 3072. Soon, they arrived at the wormhole. You guys enter in batches. You guys go in first. Bai Li started to make arrangements. This time, he arranged for the others to enter in batches. The first batch included Isyong and a dozen winged men youths. Isyong and the winged men youths quickly rushed into the wormhole and disappeared. After a while, Bai Li arranged for another batch of people to enter. Just like that, batches after batches of people entered. As for Lu Ming and the rest, they were left for last. Lu Ming sneered. This Bai Li was obviously biased towards Isyong. He purposely arranged for them to enter the wormhole in batches. Moreover, he arranged for Isyong to be in the first batch and left Lu Ming to be in the last batch. He was afraid that Lu Ming would attack Isyong when they returned to the Starry Sky Camp. This way, Isyong would have time to escape when he returned to the Starry Sky Camp. What a good plan. However, Lu Ming couldn't object. He could only wait quietly. Now, come with me. At the end, Bai Li said to Lu Ming and the others. The group flew into the wormhole and returned to the territory of the Starry Sky Camp. After returning to the Starry Sky Camp, Lu Ming scanned the surroundings. As expected, he didn't see Yi Xiong and the others. They must have left the camp and returned to the Winged Men clan. Brothers Wu, Lu Ming has a request. Lu Ming cupped his fists and said to Wu Ming, Wu Yu and the others, Brother Lu, please speak your mind. If we can do it, we won't refuse. That's right. Wu Ming, Wu Yu and the others nodded in agreement. Not to mention that they were friends with Lu Ming. Just Lu Ming's talent was enough to shock them. They had never seen someone as talented as Lu Ming. With Lu Ming's talent, his future would be immeasurable. When he grew up, he might even become a big shot in the Taishu dynasty. They must build a good relationship with such a person. The best time to build a good relationship with a person was when the other party hadn't grown up yet. I must kill Yi Xiong. Later, I'll have to trouble Brothers Wu to help me find Yi Xiong's whereabouts. Lu Ming said. So it's this matter. It's no big deal. Leave it to us. That's right. Our Wu clan has many spies in the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. It's extremely easy to find out about a person's whereabouts. Wu Ming and Wu Yu patted their chests and agreed readily. However, Brother Lu, the Thunder-Winged Man tribe is extremely powerful. Most importantly, the Thunder-Winged Man tribe has many branches and is extremely powerful. If you want to kill Yi Xiong, you have to be careful. Wu Zixiong reminded. I know. Thank you for your concern, Brother Wu. Lu Ming smiled. He naturally knew that the Winged Clan was not to be trifled with. However, the Winged Clan had almost killed Qiu Autumn Moon. He could not let this matter rest. Moreover, even if he wanted to let it go, the other party would not let him off so easily. They chatted as they flew towards their respective residences. Not long after, Lu Ming and Qiu Yu returned to the courtyard where they lived. In truth, with Qiu Autumn Moon's current strength, he was completely capable of challenging others and easily seizing a monastery. However, she liked to stay together with Lu Ming. Hence, there was no need for him to seize another monastery. Qiu Autumn Moon, your cultivation has just skyrocketed. You need to consolidate it. Lu Ming said to Autumn Moon. Young master, I'll go and cultivate then. Qiu Autumn Moon nodded and returned to her room to cultivate. Lu Ming also returned to his room. The moment he opened the door, a metal ball flew towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming, you're finally back. I'm bored to death staying here alone. Qiu cried out as its round body spun around. You're always eating and sleeping. How can you be lonely? Lu Ming's lips twitched. He sized up Qiu and his eyes suddenly lit up. Qiu, your cultivation has broken through again? Lu Ming asked in surprise. Yes. I've broken through. I'm now at the 2nd layer of the God King realm. How is it? Awesome, right? Qiu bounced up and down, his face full of pride. Indeed. Lu Ming said happily. One should know that breaking through to the God King realm was extremely difficult. Every breakthrough required a long period of accumulation. However, Qiu had just broken through not too long ago and had broken through again. This speed was astonishing. Seems like this guy only has precious metal attribute materials to break through at an astonishing speed. Lu Ming muttered. During the hundreds of years that Qiu had been asleep, Lu Ming had accumulated a large amount of precious metal attribute materials. After Qiu had awakened, Lu Ming had given it all to Qiu. Clearly, after digesting those metal attribute materials, Qiu's cultivation had broken through to the 2nd layer of the God King realm. Qiu's strength was already astonishing. Now that it had broken through to the 2nd layer of the God King realm, it was undoubtedly even stronger. Qiu, I have something good for you. Lu Ming smiled, then took out a few treasures. Lu Ming had obtained 2 boxes from the castle in Star Moon Ancient City. Inside were some small towers, mirrors, and other treasures. Although many years had passed and most of their spiritual energy had been lost, the materials used to make these treasures were extremely rare and precious. They would be of great help to Qiu. Lu Ming took out a few treasures and gave them to Qiu to try. He wanted to see how effective they were. As soon as Qiu saw these treasures, its eyes sparkled. It couldn't move its gaze away. Delicious, absolutely delicious. Are these all for me? Looking at the treasures, Qiu almost drooled. Are these treasures of great help to you? Lu Ming asked. Yes, of course. They're even better than what you gave me before. Qiu nodded immediately. Its eyes didn't leave the treasures, as if it couldn't wait to hug them and take a few bites. Then take them. I have more here. If you want to eat them, I'll take them. Lu Ming smiled and threw the treasures to Xueqi. Xueqi stretched out 2 claws, grabbed them, and stuffed them into its mouth, chewing loudly. Lu Ming smiled, walked into the room, and sat cross-legged on the bed. Then, a few storage rings appeared in his hand. During this trip to Star Moon Ancient City, Lu Ming had killed many opponents. They were all top geniuses. Obtaining their storage rings must be a great harvest. Lu Ming checked them one by one. Half a day later, Lu Ming had sorted out the things in all the storage rings. A great harvest. The wealth of so many geniuses added together was a great harvest. All kinds of divine weapons, divine pills, materials, and divine crystals were piled up like a mountain. Lu Ming had almost used up all the divine crystals to buy the 5 divine-grade divine techniques. Now he was rich again. These were still considered good. What delighted Lu Ming the most were the divine techniques. Lu Ming sorted out 4 divine-grade divine techniques in the storage rings of these peerless geniuses. As for the divine techniques, there were dozens of them. However, Lu Ming didn't care about the divine techniques at all. He casually stuffed them into a storage ring. What Lu Ming cared about were the 4 divine-grade divine techniques. Chapter 3073. He had obtained 4 different divine-grade techniques from Yuhan, Xueqi, and young noble Heavenly Mantis's storage rings. Unfortunately, none of them matched Lu Ming's Golden Dragon God Force or 4-eyed Divine Dragon God Force. Thus, the Golden Dragon God Force and 4-eyed Divine Dragon God Force couldn't be merged. Lu Ming yearned for the divine-grade divine power that corresponded to these 2 divine powers. As long as he could obtain the corresponding divine-grade God Force, all of Lu Ming's God Force would be transformed into divine-grade God Force. Also, the Divine Dragon Aspect art required divine power related to dragons in order to unleash its full power. Furthermore, his new Yin-Yang Divine Pupils required a God Force related to his eyes. 4-eyed Divine Dragon God Force could enhance his Yin-Yang Divine Pupils. If he could cultivate a divine-grade God Force similar to his 4-eyed Divine Dragon God Force, the enhancement would be even greater. I still need to find an opportunity to inquire about these 2 types of God Force. Lu Ming pondered in his heart. Then, he pondered over the 4 divine-grade techniques in his possession. He didn't plan to cultivate all 4 divine-grade techniques at the moment. He had already grasped enough divine-grade God Force. The amount of energy required to enhance so many types of divine-grade God Force at the same time was shocking. Furthermore, Lu Ming planned to awaken his origin God Force factor. This would cost Lu Ming a lot of energy. Lu Ming didn't have that much time to cultivate. Originally, Lu Ming didn't plan to cultivate any of the 4 divine-grade techniques. However, one of them attracted Lu Ming's attention. Overlord Spear Art. This was a divine-grade technique he had obtained from Xueqi. After cultivating it, he would be able to condense the Overlord Spear Art. The Overlord Spear Art would greatly enhance the power of the spear. It was the same principle as the Inextinguishable Sword Force for sword users. Lu Ming was a spear user. Although the Inextinguishable Sword Force was powerful, it wasn't very suitable for a long spear. If he could control the Overlord Spear Art, he would be able to push Lu Ming's spear skills to the limit. Another important reason was that Lu Ming had obtained a divine skill from Xueqi. The name of the skill reminded Lu Ming of Xueqi's ultimate move, the War God Strike. The strike of the War God originated from the War God Strike. Lu Ming's 3 Armageddon strikes only had a total of 9 levels. Lu Ming had already reached the 8th level. Once he reached the 9th level, he would reach his limit. At that time, Lu Ming would need to find a new divine skill to cultivate. As for the War God Strike, it was divided into 13 stages. This was enough for Lu Ming to cultivate for a very long time. Therefore, Lu Ming decided to cultivate the Overlord Spear Art, and temporarily not cultivate the other 3 divine techniques. Putting away the other 3 divine techniques, Lu Ming took out the Overlord Spear Art and carefully studied it. In the blink of an eye, several days passed. Lu Ming had already comprehended a bit of it. Right now, Lu Ming was already very familiar with divine-grade divine techniques. Switching to a new one, his speed was much faster than before. On this day, while Lu Ming was cultivating, he suddenly sensed an aura approaching his courtyard. Oh! Lu Ming frowned. Ending his cultivation, he walked out of his courtyard. As soon as he walked out, he saw a beautiful woman standing in the air. She was like a fairy that had descended to the mortal world. The woman was none other than Lan Ling. Could it be that she had killed her way here? What are you doing here? Do you want to kill me again? Lu Ming frowned and said coldly. Right now, he wasn't afraid of her. If she wanted to attack him again, he wouldn't mind teaching her an unforgettable lesson. Lan Ling's expression was very cold. She glared at Lu Ming, gnashing her teeth as if she wanted nothing more than to immediately kill Lu Ming. But in the end, she restrained herself and coldly said, My father wants to see you. Your father? Lu Ming was slightly stunned. Then his eyes flashed. Lan Ling's father was Jing Yu's teacher. Are you going to see him or not? I've already delivered your message. If you don't want to see him, then goodbye. Lan Ling finished speaking and turned to leave. It was as if she couldn't wait for Lu Ming to refuse to see her father. See him? Why not? Lu Ming rose into the air and followed behind Lan Ling. Her father was Jing Yu's teacher. In the Taishu dynasty, he was definitely a big shot. If Lu Ming wanted to reverse the case for Jing Yu, it would be much easier if he could borrow his father's power. Why not? Lu Ming wasn't stupid. Humph. Seeing Lu Ming following her, Lan Ling coldly snorted. She seemed to be very unhappy. Lan Ling kept flying towards the peak of Star Peak. You and your father are living at the peak of Star Peak? Lu Ming asked curiously. Humph. Lan Ling snorted coldly. Isn't your father Prince Jing Yu's teacher? Why isn't he in the imperial capital of the Taishu dynasty? Why is he living in the starry camp of the Jiuju Heavenly King Mansion? Lu Ming asked again. Humph. Lan Ling snorted coldly. What exactly happened back then? Do you know anything about it? Lu Ming asked. Humph. Lan Ling snorted coldly. Lu Ming was speechless. He could only shut up. No matter what he asked, the other party only replied with a snort. Not long after, the two of them arrived at a courtyard not far from the peak of Star Peak. Outside the courtyard, there was a small lake. The lake water was so clear that one could see the bottom. They could even see small fish swimming around in the lake. On the surface of the lake, there was a middle-aged man with graying temples. He wore an ordinary linen robe and sat cross-legged on the surface of the lake. He seemed to be admiring the small fish in the lake. Father! Lan Ling called out softly. Coming! The middle-aged man said. He then stood up and looked at Lu Ming. He took a step forward and appeared in front of Lu Ming, and Lan Ling. Is this Jing Yu's teacher? As expected, he has an extraordinary temperament. However, why is there not a trace of divine power on him? He is just like an ordinary person. Perhaps his cultivation is too high and the gap between us is too big. Thoughts flashed through Lu Ming's mind. The middle-aged man also looked at Lu Ming carefully. His eyes were bright as if he could see through Lu Ming. Not bad, not bad. I can't see through him at all. As expected of Jing Yu's successor. The middle-aged man nodded repeatedly and said, Lu Ming, come with me. I have something to tell you. After saying that, the middle-aged man walked into the courtyard. Lu Ming's eyes flickered a few times. He then followed the middle-aged man into the courtyard. Lan Ling did not follow. Instead, she waited outside the courtyard. Walking into the courtyard, there were stone tables and stone stools placed in the courtyard. Sit. The middle-aged man sat down on a stone stool and waved his hand, indicating Lu Ming to sit. Thank you, senior. Lu Ming cupped his fists and sat down. I'm Blue Merchant. The middle-aged man introduced himself. Senior Blue Merchant. Lu Ming greeted. You're welcome. You're Jing Yu's successor. Logically speaking, you're 2 generations below me. However, we're not strangers. You can just call me Uncle Lan Shu. Lan Shang said with a smile, making people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. Lu Ming nodded and called him Uncle Lan Shu. Chapter 3074. Uncle Lan Shu, I would like to know, how did you know that I'm Senior Jing Yu's successor? Lu Ming asked the question that had been bothering him for a long time. He was certain that Lan Shang had seen through his disguise during his battle with Ice Eagle. But how did the other party see through it? Because you cultivate Sovereign God Force. Blue Merchant said with a faint smile. Sovereign God Force? Lu Ming was puzzled. That's right. There's a trace of Jing Yu's imprint in your sovereign god force. Although it's very faint, I've guided Jing Yu's cultivation for many years and know him too well. Therefore, even though there's only a trace of Jing Yu's imprint in your sovereign god force, I can still sense it. Other than Jing Yu's successor, who else would have Jing Yu's imprint? Blue Merchant said with a faint smile. Jing Yu's imprint? Lu Ming's mind raced, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Back when he was in the Yellow Springs Mountain, he had studied the sovereign Tao by looking at Jing Yu's statue. Perhaps that was why his sovereign god force had a trace of Jing Yu's imprint. You were able to obtain Jing Yu's inheritance because you came from the Yellow Springs Mountain sealed land, right? How's the Yellow Springs Mountain now? Lan Shang asked with a complicated look in his eyes. Lu Ming immediately explained what had happened in the Yellow Springs Mountain. Sigh, it's been hard on them. One day, they'll see the light of day again, Blue Merchant said. His eyes shone brightly as he spoke. Uncle Lan Shu, what happened back then? Senior Jingyu, who did this to you? Lu Ming asked. Blue Merchant shook his head and said, I don't know. What I know is similar to what Jingyu knows. Back then, Jingyu was framed and fell. His trusted aides were either killed or sealed. As for me, I was stripped of my authority. Due to some reason, I came to the 9 Extinction Heavenly King residence. Blue Merchant sighed. Many things seemed to have happened back then, and he didn't want to talk about it. Then his tone changed as he said, Prince Jingyu must have been framed back then. This matter must be investigated thoroughly. I've promised Senior Jingyu that I'll investigate this matter and help him reverse the verdict. At that time, I'll have to trouble Uncle Lan Shu to help me. Lu Ming said. Of course, I will do my best to help you. However, now is not the time. There is no need to rush this matter. Your current goal is to increase your strength. Your current strength is still too weak in the Taishu Holy Court, Yi Futian said. Lan Shang said. Lu Ming nodded his head nodded, but he sighed in his heart. His strength had increased very quickly, faster than most people, but he always felt that his cultivation was not enough. By the way, you said you're from the Qin Tian Star Field. Why did you come to the Starry Camp? Oh, are you going to use the Starry Camp as a springboard to enter the Taishu Imperial Academy? Then, you'll use the Taishu Imperial Academy as your foundation to slowly rise and investigate Prince Jingyu's case? Blue Merchant suddenly said. Taishu Imperial Academy? Lu Ming was puzzled. You don't know about the Taishu Imperial Academy? Blue Merchant was surprised. I don't know. What does it do? Lu Ming shook his head and asked. The Taishu Imperial Academy is the place where all the sky prides of the Taishu dynasty gathered. Not only all the top sky prides of the Taishu dynasty gathered there, but even the princes and princesses of the Taishu dynasty studied there. That's the place where the Taishu dynasty cultivated their talents. Almost all the big shots of the Taishu dynasty came from the Taishu dynasty. Prince Jingyu also studied in the Taishu dynasty. But if you want to enter the Taishu dynasty, you'll have to be recommended by the big shots of the Taishu dynasty. Otherwise, you can only enter the starry camp of each heavenly king's mansion. Blue Merchant explained. Lu Ming was suddenly enlightened. He understood now. He had heard from Wu Zifeng and the others that if one wanted to enter the core area of the Taishu dynasty to cultivate, one had to join the Starry Camp first. If one didn't join the Starry Camp, one wouldn't be able to cultivate in the Taishu dynasty. I didn't come to the Starry Camp to enter the Taishu Imperial Academy. Lu Ming said. Then what's your purpose here? Blue Merchant was surprised. It's for the treasure of the 9 Extinction Heavenly King's Mansion, the theft of the 9 Extinction Divine Crystal. Lu Ming said. The 9 Extinction Godly Crystal? I've heard about it. How is it? How's your investigation going? Blue Merchant asked. I still don't have a clue. Lu Ming shook his head and briefly recounted what had happened during this period of time. He also said that he suspected that there was evidence in the storage ring of the Dark Knight Demon, but he couldn't find it even after searching it many times. There are some ways to seal some evidence very deeply. It's normal that you can't find it. Give me the storage ring of the Dark Knight Demon and I'll help you find it. Blue Merchant said. Thank you, Uncle Lan Shu. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He immediately took out the storage ring of the Dark Knight Demon and gave it to Blue Merchant. Blue Merchant was Jingyu's teacher. His cultivation was unfathomable and he was knowledgeable. He might be able to find evidence. If he could find evidence and find the person who colluded with the Dark Ice Race to steal the 9 Extinction Divine Crystal, the safety of the Qin Tian Star Zone would be solved. Blue Merchant took the storage ring and put it away. By the way, there's one more thing. Lan Shang's tone suddenly changed. He coughed dryly and said, when Jingyu was still alive, I made an agreement with him that if we had descendants in the future, if they were of the same gender, we would become brothers or sisters. If they were of the opposite gender, we would become husband and wife. Later, Jingyu died and didn't have any descendants. As Jingyu's successor, you are equivalent to his descendant. I will definitely fulfill my promise and marry Ling to you. Lu Ming was caught off guard. He didn't expect Blue Merchant to mention this. Uncle Lan Shu, you can't do that. I've only met Miss Lan Ling once, no twice. Isn't it too hasty to marry her to me? Lu Ming waved his hand. That's easy. You can move in together and spend more time together. You'll be familiar with each other in the future. Blue Merchant smiled. He was very open-minded. No, Uncle Lan Shu. To be honest, I already have a wife. Lu Ming said. It's okay. It's normal for a man to have multiple wives. Blue Merchant said. Lu Ming was speechless. Blue Merchant was very open-minded. He was pushing his daughter into the fire pit. However, Lu Ming had Xian Yanqing and Autumn Moon. In addition, he had Mulins and Huang Ling, 2 confidants. He already had enough headaches. He didn't want another one. Moreover, when he thought of Lan Ling's murderous expression, Lu Ming refused even more. Living with Lan Ling? What a joke. He wouldn't even know when he was killed by her. Uncle Lan Shu, no, still no. Lu Ming still shook his head. Why? Do you think my daughter is not worthy of you? Blue Merchant's face sank and said coldly. Chapter 3075. How could that be? Miss Ling is as beautiful as a fairy. How could she not be worthy of me? It's just that. Miss Ling wants to kill me. Lu Ming began to complain. Wants to kill you? Blue Merchant was slightly taken aback. Then, he smiled bitterly and said, this girl is really rebellious. Then, Blue Merchant frowned and fell into deep thought. Lu Ming secretly prayed that Blue Merchant would give up on the idea of marrying Lan Ling to him. Although Lan Ling was an outstanding beauty and any man would be moved by her, Lu Ming knew that he didn't have the fortune to be with her bad temper. After a while, Blue Merchant said, how about this, I won't make things difficult for you. I'll let Ling stay by your side for 1,000 years and let you develop feelings for each other. If after 1,000 years, you still don't want to marry each other, then this matter will be dropped. This isn't too good. Lu Ming's face immediately turned bitter. Let Lan Ling, that crazy woman, stay by his side for 1,000 years? What a joke. At the thought of this, Lu Ming felt a headache coming. What's not good about it? Feelings need to be developed. You're afraid that Ling will make a move on you again. Don't worry. I'll warn her properly. In addition, Ling talent is not bad. If you two are together, you can take care of each other and help Jingyu reverse the case. This matter is settled. Blue Merchant waved his hand and settled this matter. This. Lu Ming was completely speechless. Ha, that's it. Lu Ming, go out and wait for me. I'll call Ling in and give her a good scolding. Lan Shang laughed out loud. He laughed like a sly old fox. Lu Ming despised him in his heart. This Blue Merchant looked gentle on the surface, but in fact, he was scheming in his heart. He wanted to set him up with Lan Ling. He believed that with Lan Ling's beauty, staying with Lu Ming every day, they would definitely develop feelings for each other. This old man must have taken a fancy to my talent. Sigh, there's nothing I can do about it. Who asked me to be so talented and handsome? There's really nothing I can do about it. Lu Ming sighed inwardly. If Blue Merchant knew what Lu Ming was thinking, he would probably spit out a mouthful of blood. Lu Ming walked out of the courtyard and saw Lan Ling. He said to Lan Ling, your father is looking for you. Humph. Lan Ling coldly snorted and walked into the courtyard without looking at Lu Ming. Lu Ming waited in the garden. Not long after, he saw Blue Merchant and Lan Ling walking out together. Lan Ling's eyes were red. When she saw Lu Ming, she glared hatefully at Lu Ming. She wished she could eat Lu Ming. Lu Ming, I'll tell Ling to inform you about the matter of the evidence after I find it. Now, I'll let Ling send you back. Send Lu Ming off. Blue Merchant instructed. Lan Ling gritted her teeth and walked unwillingly to Lu Ming's side. She said coldly, let's go. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. It seemed that Lan Ling was really reprimanded by Blue Merchant. It seemed that her resentment towards him was even heavier. Uncle Lan Shu, goodbye. Lu Ming cupped his fists. Then, he stepped into the air and flew towards his own courtyard. Lan Ling walked side by side with Lu Ming with a cold face. After a while, they were far away from Blue Merchant's residence. Lu Ming, what did you say to my father? Suddenly, Lan Ling spoke. Her voice was cold as she glared at Lu Ming. No, I didn't say anything. Lu Ming said. Of course, he had to deny it. You didn't say anything? Then why would my father reprimand me? You're a man, but you actually snitched in front of my father. You're really shameless. Lan Ling said hatefully. Lu Ming was speechless. He felt wronged in his heart. It was the other party who wanted to kill him as soon as they met. Couldn't he say anything? Humph. Lecher, you already have a woman by your side. You still want me to follow you. Shameless. Despicable. Lan Ling continued to scold. Lu Ming almost coughed up blood. What did she mean by him wanting Lan Ling to follow him? It was clearly Blue Merchant who forced her to follow him, okay? Don't talk nonsense. It was your father who forced you to follow me for 1,000 years. I originally refused. Lu Ming quickly denied. You mean to say that no one wants me and it was my father who forced me to follow you? Am I trying to climb up your social ladder? Lan Ling's face turned colder. Lu Ming almost coughed up blood. How could this woman's imagination be so wild? He didn't mean that. It's fine if you want to follow me for 1,000 years, but it depends on whether you have the ability or not. If you can survive 3 of my moves, I'll follow you for 1,000 years. Suddenly, Lan Ling's voice turned cold. A cold murderous intent shrouded Lu Ming. Lu Ming frowned. He felt that Lan Ling really wanted to kill him. She wanted to use this reason to kill him. However, that was then and this was now. Lu Ming's current strength was many times stronger than when he first met Lan Ling. Come on, let me have a taste of your moves. Lu Ming's gaze turned cold. He had already given way many times, but Lan Ling was still pressing on. Lu Ming was also angry. Clang! The long sword was unsheathed and the sword's cry was earth-shattering. First move. Lan Ling's voice had just sounded when a terrifying sword light slashed towards Lu Ming. Its power was extremely shocking. This move could even kill a half-step divine king who hadn't awakened his divine origin power. Lan Ling attacked without mercy. Boom! Lu Ming's body also erupted with a powerful aura. A long spear appeared in his hand and he swung it out. Clang! The long spear collided with the sword light, erupting with a violent rumble. Terrifying force chi spread out in all directions like a storm. When the force chi dissipated, Lu Ming and Lan Ling's bodies stood in the void motionlessly. Turns out that he already awakened his divine origin power. Lan Ling's gaze sharpened, revealing a look of surprise. She did not expect that Lu Ming only had 6th level celestial deity cultivation, and he already awakened his divine origin power. Wait a minute. 6th level celestial deity. Lan Ling thought of something and secretly revealed a look of surprise. She remembered very clearly that back then at Star Moon Ancient City, Lu Ming's cultivation was only 4th level celestial deity. Just how long had it been? Lu Ming actually broke through 2 rounds in a row and reached 6th level celestial deity. This speed was also too fast. He must have had a fortuitous encounter in Star Moon Ancient City. Otherwise, it's absolutely impossible to be so fast by relying on his own cultivation. Lan Ling's heart skipped a beat. She did not guess wrong about this. Lu Ming did have a fortuitous encounter. Otherwise, it was absolutely impossible for his cultivation to rise so quickly. One move, Lu Ming said indifferently. Originally, he could have purposely lost to the other party. Then, Lan Ling would not have to follow by his side. However, Lu Ming also had his pride. He wanted to teach Lan Ling a lesson now. Naturally, he would not give in. Humph! Don't think that you can stop me just because you've awakened your divine origin power. Lan Ling snorted coldly. The aura on her body became even stronger. Her strength was pushed to the extreme by her. Bas! A sword shadow that was tens of thousands of meters long continuously shook the void. Then, it slashed down violently at Lu Ming with terrifying might. Chapter 3076. Lan Ling pushed her cultivation base to the maximum and slashed out a terrifying attack. Lan Ling's cultivation base was extremely high. She was only half a step away from the Divine King realm. It seemed like she could break through to the Divine King realm at any time. Moreover, her strength was extremely strong. She was even stronger than when she was in Xingyue Ancient City. Lu Ming felt that she was stronger than Jin Yuan and not any weaker than Chu Baxing. Obviously, Lu Ming wasn't the only one who had improved in Xingyue Ancient City. Others had improved as well. Moon slashing. Lu Ming roared and instantly activated the battle character secret art to increase his combat strength by 4 times. He then slashed out with his spear. A crescent-shaped spear light slashed towards Lan Ling. Boom. The second collision caused an even more shocking shockwave. Fortunately, the two of them were already high up in the sky. Otherwise, the entire starry sky barracks would be alarmed by them. There was still no clear winner in this collision. The second move, Lu Ming said indifferently. Lan Ling's face turned even uglier. The sword intent on her body was getting stronger and stronger. Divine sword art, kill! Lan Ling shouted as she waved her battle sword, unleashing countless sword shadows and sword intents. Each of the sword intents were over 10,000 meters long. The entire void was filled with the shadows of her swords. Then, countless sword shadows slashed towards Lu Ming with boundless power. If Lu Ming hadn't broken through to the 6th heaven god realm, Lu Ming would have had to transform into a green-armored ancient god to block this move. But now, Lu Ming didn't need to do that. Divine Dragon Image, Ice Chain. With a thought, Lu Ming cast the 2 secret skills of the Divine Dragon Dharma characteristic and the Ice Chain. Asterisk roar. Asterisk a series of dragon cries echoed in the sky. 9 9-clawed divine dragons flew out and pounced toward the sword shadows that filled the sky. At the same time, 9 ice chains danced around Lu Ming's body like ice dragons. The terrifying coldness almost froze the space around them. Chunks of ice appeared in the air. Boom! Boom! The Divine Dragon Dharma idol bore the brunt of the attack. It collided with the sword shadows in the sky, causing explosions. However, the 9 Divine Dragon Dharma idols soon crumbled under the onslaught of sword shadows. Then, the sword shadows slashed at the ice chains, shattering countless ice cubes and causing the ice chains to shake violently. Break the sky! Break the sky! Lu Ming's long spear continued to thrust out. Spear lights flew out like meteors and collided with Lan Ling's sword shadows. The void continued to rumble. After a few minutes, the collision finally stopped. Lu Ming had retreated 1,000 meters, but his breathing was steady. He had successfully blocked Lan Ling's sword shadow. Lan Ling's eyes widened in disbelief. Back in Xingyue Ancient City, Lu Ming could only run for his life when he saw her. He might not even be able to withstand one of her moves. But now, Lu Ming could withstand 3 of her moves. Most importantly, she had already used her ultimate move in her last move. Lu Ming's strength had increased too quickly. 3 moves, Lu Ming said faintly. I don't believe that I can't suppress you today. Lan Ling flew into a rage out of humiliation. She shouted and released a terrifying aura. She was about to charge at Lu Ming again. Now it's my turn. Lu Ming's gaze turned cold as he cast the 9 Heavens Kuan Peng technique. In a flash, he dashed toward Lan Ling. In the process, his body swelled rapidly and he transformed into a green-armored ancient god. Whoosh! The green-armored ancient god was a few hundred meters tall. Compared to him, Lan Ling was like an ant. Lu Ming opened one of his big hands and grabbed Lan Ling. The sky rumbled as his palm reached out. It was extremely terrifying. Divine sword skill. Slash. 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 Lan Ling shouted. Her sword shadow soared into the sky and slashed at Lu Ming's palm. However, Lu Ming controlled the ice chain and wrapped his palm to strengthen his defense. With the ice chain and the green scales of the green-armored ancient god as a double defense, Lu Ming was not afraid of Lan Ling's sword shadow at all. Under the big hand, Lan Ling's sword shadow crumbled. Lan Ling's expression changed. She wanted to retreat, but it was too late. The big hand grabbed Lan Ling. Lan Ling struggled desperately, but Lu Ming controlled his divine power and poured it into Lan Ling's body. Lan Ling gasped and felt that the divine power in her body was almost shattered. She felt weak all over. In this way, she was firmly controlled by Lu Ming and could not resist. With Lu Ming's current cultivation, He could completely suppress Lan Ling after transforming into a green-armored ancient god. After controlling Lan Ling, Lu Ming's body quickly shrank and turned back to normal. He trapped Lan Ling with an ice chain. "Let me go, let me go!" Lan Ling shouted and struggled frantically, but it was useless. She could not break free at all. "Let you go? You tried to kill me again and again in Star Crescent Ancient City. I saved you later, but you tried to kill me again just now. Tell me, do you think I will let you go?" Lu Ming sneered and walked step by step to Lan Ling's side. "Then, what do you want to do?" Lan Ling gritted her teeth and said, "What do I want to do? What do you think?" Lu Ming laughed and looked at Lan Ling's body. "You pervert, don't even think about it. Let me tell you, my father is definitely watching us. Do you dare?" Lan Ling shouted. "Your father? Your father can't wait for me to do you on the spot." Lu Ming said indifferently. On Star Peak, in Blue Merchant's courtyard, Blue Merchant had just taken a sip of tea and spat it out. "This little guy. What are you talking about?" Blue Merchant muttered, feeling a little embarrassed. That's right, everything that happened between Lu Ming and Lan Ling was under Blue Merchant's attention. However, Lu Ming was right. If Lu Ming really wanted to do Lan Ling, he would be more than happy to do so. You. Nonsense, Lan Ling stared at Lu Ming with hatred. "But don't worry, I'm not interested in you," Lu Ming said indifferently, causing Lan Ling to grit her teeth. For some reason, she felt uncomfortable in her heart. Lu Ming was not interested in her? Was her attractiveness that bad? It had to be said that women had strange thoughts. However, punishment is unavoidable. If I don't teach you a lesson, I'll feel uncomfortable. Lu Ming smiled, then took a step forward, stretched out his hand, and slapped Lan Ling's perky butt. Slap. A crisp sound could be heard. Lan Ling's body stiffened all of a sudden. The expression on her face was also like that of a person, staring blankly at Lu Ming. "What are you looking at? The feeling is not bad." Again. After saying that, Lu Ming slapped her again. Slap. Another crisp sound was heard. This time, Lan Ling finally reacted, and a scream was heard in the sky. "Lu Ming, I'm going to kill you." Lan Ling's face was red. Even her ears and neck were red. She bared her fangs and brandished her claws, wishing that she could tear Lu Ming into pieces. "You're still so fierce. Seems like I haven't taught you a lesson yet." Again. Lu Ming continued to slap her. Slap, slap, slap. This time, 3 consecutive sounds were heard, causing Lan Ling's body to stiffen completely. Her face was so red that it was about to bleed. Chapter 3077. After being slapped by Lu Ming 3 times in a row, Lan Ling's face and neck turned red as if blood was about to drip out. Her body trembled slightly, and her eyes were wide open. She wished she could eat Lu Ming. "Lu Ming, you still dare to stare? Try staring again." Lu Ming curled his lips. Lan Ling was still glaring at him. "Sigh, it doesn't feel good to hit you through your pants. Take them off and hit me." Lu Ming waved his hand and muttered. Lan Ling didn't dare to stare at him anymore. She cried out, "No, don't." When she thought that Lu Ming was really going to take off his pants, she really wanted to die. "You're finally begging for mercy. Come, tell me. Do you still dare to hit or kill me when you see me in the future?" Lu Ming asked. "No, I don't dare anymore." Under Lu Ming's abuse, Lan Ling finally gave in. Although she wanted to chop Lu Ming into pieces, she really didn't dare to be brave under such circumstances. Until now, her father, Blue Merchant, hadn't appeared. She knew that Blue Merchant deliberately didn't appear. He wanted to matchmake her and Lu Ming. She couldn't count on Blue Merchant. She felt like crying. How could a father be like this? He couldn't wait to marry her to someone else. It wasn't like no one wanted her. That's more like it. Behave yourself in the future. I, Lu Ming, am also a gentleman. I won't make things difficult for you. Lu Ming chuckled. With a wave of his hand, the ice shackles were put away. After all, Lan Ling was Blue Merchant's daughter. It was fine to teach her a lesson, but it wouldn't be good to go too far. Lan Ling gritted her teeth. She despised Lu Ming and scolded Lu Ming thousands of times in her heart. How could a person like Lu Ming have the nerve to call himself a gentleman? However, Lan Ling didn't dare to make a move now. because she was no match for Lu Ming. Lu Ming, I'll remember this. When I break through to the Divine King realm, I'll definitely get back at you. Lan Ling swore in her heart. Let's go, Lu Ming said. He stepped into the air and continued to head toward the courtyard where he was staying. Lan Ling followed behind him obediently. In Blue Merchant's courtyard. Hee, they're starting to flirt. A good sign. Lan Shang let out a few sneaky laughs. If Lan Ling saw Lan Shang's expression, she would probably vomit blood. Not long after, Lu Ming and Lan Ling arrived outside Lu Ming's courtyard. Young master. In the courtyard, Autumn Moon was practicing her sword. When she saw Lu Ming, she immediately flew out. Autumn Moon, how's your cultivation going? Lu Ming greeted her with a smile. I'm much more familiar with it. I believe I'll be able to fully control it soon. This lady is. Autumn Moon looked at Lan Ling. Autumn Moon recognized Lan Ling. When they left Xingyue Ancient City, Lan Ling had been staring coldly at Lu Ming. Autumn Moon even teased Lu Ming. Now that she saw Lu Ming and Lan Ling returning together, she was naturally curious. I'm Lan Ling. Before Lu Ming could speak, Lan Ling stepped out and said coldly. Then she stared at Lu Ming and said, Lu Ming, I can follow you. But you must chase her away. After saying that, she pointed at Autumn Moon. Autumn Moon was slightly stunned and revealed a curious look. Lu Ming frowned. Are you crazy? Autumn Moon is my wife. Why should I chase her away? Because she's your wife. That's why you want to chase her away. Lan Ling gritted her teeth. You're crazy. If you don't want to come, then leave. Lu Ming waved his hand and ignored Lan Ling clang. Lan Ling unsheathed her sword. A powerful aura pressed down on Autumn Moon. Boom. Lu Ming stepped out and the void shook. The powerful aura directly defeated Lan Ling's aura. Seems like I haven't taught you a lesson yet. Lu Ming stared at Lan Ling, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. He didn't care much about attacking him. But to attack Autumn Moon, that was unacceptable. No matter who the other party was, he wouldn't go easy on them. Seeing Lu Ming's expression, Lan Ling was shocked. But as stubborn as she was, she wouldn't back down. Lu Ming, you have to understand what you're going to do in the future. You're going to do great things. The enemies you're going to face are extremely powerful. So, the people around you can't be useless. They can't be a burden to you. Do you understand? Lan Ling said coldly. Her meaning was obvious. Autumn Moon wasn't qualified to stay by Lu Ming's side. Get lost. Go back and tell Blue Merchant that I don't need you here. Lu Ming shouted coldly. Lu Ming, you. Lan Ling was furious. Since young, no one had treated her like this. She was an outstanding beauty. Any man who saw her would be obedient to her. Lu Ming was an exception. Young master, since this lady wants to test Autumn Moon's strength, let her try. At this moment, Autumn Moon spoke. She stepped out and landed in front of Lu Ming. Autumn Moon was actually arrogant. It was just that she kept her arrogance in front of Lu Ming. But that didn't mean that others could humiliate her and look down on her. Especially in front of Lu Ming. They thought that she wasn't qualified to stay by Lu Ming's side. So, Autumn Moon decided to make a move. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. But he didn't stop her. He naturally understood Autumn Moon's temper. Moreover, Autumn Moon was no longer the same as before. If they fought, she might not lose to Lan Ling. Alright, be careful then. Lu Ming reminded. Autumn Moon nodded. She faced Lan Ling and said, Lady, please make your move. Just do your best. Very good. Then let me see how capable the woman that Lu Ming likes is. Lan Ling gritted her teeth and unleashed her cultivation to the extreme. She didn't know why, but when she saw that Lu Ming treated Autumn Moon so well, she felt an inexplicable discomfort in her heart. She couldn't wait to defeat Autumn Moon and prove that she was stronger than Autumn Moon. Swoosh! Lan Ling made her move. A sword shadow slashed out violently, causing the air to explode. However, at the instant when Lan Ling made her move, Autumn Moon also made her move. Autumn Moon's weapon was a scimitar. When the scimitar slashed out, the blade light was as dazzling as the moon. Clang! The blade light and the sword shadow slashed together, causing endless blade light and sword light. After a loud sound, the two figures retreated more than 10 steps. The two of them were evenly matched in the first exchange. Autumn Moon was still fine, But Lan Ling's eyes were filled with shock. She had never expected Autumn Moon to be so powerful. Autumn Moon was only a 9th-level heavenly god. Not only had she awakened the origin source divine power, but she could also block her attack. This aroused her competitiveness even more. Again! Lan Ling shouted. She circulated her divine power to the extreme and performed her ultimate move, the divine sword art. Swoosh! 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 Terrifying sword shadows burst out one after another, slashing toward Autumn Moon. Autumn Moon let out a long roar. 9 colored lights spread out from her body and combined with her blade technique, turning into rays of blade light to counterattack. The intense battle between the two peerless beauties in the air immediately alarmed the people in the other courtyards. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.